Good evening. I love these kind of nights when the whole room is filled with smaller people who want to show us what they're learning, because that's why we're all here. So tonight will be more fun. Sorry. I want to call this meeting to order. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Anna Braun.
Here.
Timothy Cummings.
Here.
Jamie Falco.
Here.
Louis Figueroa.
Here.
Lori Herrick.
Here.
Li Wu Hong.
Here.
Lori Lax. Wilbur Pan.
Here.
Heather Guas.
Here. Please stand to salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, for the small people in the front, this is the part where I read a lot. Be patient, I'll go fast. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies in which any business affecting their interest is discussed and acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the East Brunswick Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted at the Board of Education offices. Written notice was also provided to the Sentinel, the New York Star Ledger, the Home News Tribune, the Alternative Press of East Brunswick, and the Municipal Clerk of East Brunswick. All Board of Education meetings, with the exception of executive session discussions, are videotaped for later broadcast. It is the policy of the Board of Education that videotaped meetings are not edited for any purpose. Individuals who speak at the board's public meetings should be aware of these videotaping rules. And now, the superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Guas. Good evening, everyone. The artwork on display in the boardroom this evening was created by students from Chittick Elementary School. The art teachers of these talented students are Felix Martinez and Alexis Sismar. Tatiana McBride is the principal. On Wednesday, February 5th, George Scott presented at Parent University on raising healthy children. As a family therapist and former Middlesex County Director of Student Services and current statewide coordinator for the Traumatic Loss Coalition, Mr. Scott shared insights on how toxic experiences can impact children's academic success, relationships, and emotional well-being. He emphasized the vital role parents play in fostering their children's well-being from infancy through high school. Presentation slides are available on the homepage of our district website. The social studies classes at Hammarskjold participated in a special activity entitled A Typical Ghanaian Day, Know the Past, Shape the Future. Students participated in a real-time webinar with instructors in Ghana where they were able to learn about a typical day for a Ghanaian student. Students communicated with the instructor via a chat where they asked specific questions based on what they learned in the presentation. At Memorial Elementary School, Christian Semple's third grade class celebrated the conclusion of their nonfiction reading unit by participating in a small group Living Wax Museum project. Utilizing what they learned about nonfiction texts, students researched facts about one famous person in history, past or present, that they would like to learn more about. To add to their presentation, students were given the option to dress like the individual and to bring in props as well. On January 31st, the students shared their speeches and slides featuring a video and photos of the individuals they chose. The students were poised, engaged, and let their personality shine. In sports, girls swimming continued their dominant winter season by winning their second state sectional title in back-to-back years. Congratulations to them. The girls wrestling team beat number 6 state-ranked Vernon on Monday, February 10th, and congratulations to the girls wrestling on winning the red division this season. And we're going to stick with girls' success for a second. Varsity cheer won the Mustang Classic on Saturday, February 8th. Congratulations to all of them. Second quarter report cards are now available and can be viewed online through Parent Access. Hard copies will be made available at the request of anyone without internet access. Just a few reminders. Please stay updated with our latest news by following us on Facebook. And schools will be closed this coming Monday, February 17th, for President's Day. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now we get to the wonderful part. See, it wasn't that long. All right, we have learning across the district with Warnsdorfer Elementary.
Yes, we do.
Hi, I am Kabir. I'm Jayan. I'm Matthew. And I'm Violet. We are proud students of Warnsdorfer Elementary, and we are here to teach you about our Let Grow. You might be wondering, what is Let Grow? Let Grow allows us to complete projects to help us become more independent.
The idea is to build skills and experiences to help lower the rising rates of anxiety in kids.
Every month we get a list of activities we can do to help us grow. When we complete it, we fill out a reflection sheet and our teachers give us a leaf to decorate to put on our tree. I unloaded the dishwasher without my parents asking me to. Why I did this was because my mom was busy and I knew the dishes had to be unloaded, so I unloaded them. This made me and my parents very happy. I created a design to help fold clothes. I created this because my parents don't like to fold clothes, and I thought that this would help them with this. It felt good because it was important to save time, and this helps with that.
I ran 1 mile outside in 12 minutes. I did this because it allowed me to get ready for the PACER test in gym class and the EBEF bear crawl. I came in first for the PACER test. It felt good to prepare for something by myself and have it pay off. I came in second in the EBEF bear crawl. I made a mobile for my 4-month-old baby sister. I did it by myself so she had something to look at. I felt proud of myself because I've never done anything like this before.
Hi, my name is Umang, and my son Kabir is in 4th grade in the Warnsdorfer Elementary School. I'm here tonight to let you know about the powerful impact this Let Go project has had on my son's development. As like most kids of this age, he was also very reluctant to do any of the household chores. But the gentle nudge that he got from the Let Go project made him interested in doing those chores in the first place. And he grew in independence. He grew, his interest went overboard. He was like, he wanted, every month he wanted to, he looked forward to those projects. And by the time it was the third project, which needed him to, help somebody outside of the family, he already had a plan in place. He knew whom he wanted to, contact, the family friends. He himself made a plan how he wanted to do it, and he did everything without any assistance from my side. So I feel that not only was it a Let Grow project for the kids, it was also a Let Go moment and a project for me. As a mother, you all know that it's very difficult to let go. And, with each project, when I held myself back and let him take the lead, it was the moment which was a very powerful moment. And I actually saw him grow many folds from there. So I would like to thank the East Brunswick Board of Education and the Warnsdorfer Elementary School Principal, Mr. Satari, and all the wonderful teachers who are sitting here for giving Kabir the opportunity to participate in this project. And I sincerely hope that projects like these continue in the future as well. Thank you so much.
And then these were a few of our 4th grade representatives, but it is going on throughout the entire 4th grade at Warnsdorfer. So we have a variety of projects that they can choose from or that they choose on their own, from climbing a tree to baking cupcakes, a lot of cooking, roasting pumpkin seeds, cleaning the house, and helping siblings with homework. So there's a real variety in the projects that are offered and that they choose to do. Thank you.
Great job, everyone. I would like to hire somebody to come and empty my dishwasher.
I was going to say I have a college senior and a high school senior, and they haven't touched the dishwasher ever. That probably says more about my parenting skills than anything else, but be that as it may.
I actually wrote that down. Get Kabir to come to the house.
Well, it's very good, great presentation, and thank you very much for teaching us this grow. You know, as a school district, as the community, we need to grow together always. At the time we are facing challenges, we need to grow together. We need to work together to bring this community to next level, to bring our school to next level. So that's the lesson I learned from your presentation. Additional to that, can you please introduce the organization Let Growth? It only says it's a nonprofit organization. Is any one of you can introduce that organization to us, to the audience? Or if you're not ready, next time.
I think they're asking you, I think he's asking you, what is Let Grow?
Oh, it's a nonprofit organization that gives us the curriculum for free to instill in the students, and we teach it and has like monthly statements that you can open slides, and we just do it once a month as our class meeting.
Thank you.
This was excellent. And I have to say, as a parent, I completely know I completely know what you're talking about, because it's amazing what kids can do if you just ask them to and get out of the way. But it is very hard to let go and just assume they know what they're doing. And school is very impactful for that, because I know that I woke up to a shoveled front walk the other day because someone's coach told her she should shovel before I asked. Someone is not in elementary school, but still, it's the impact of this school. So thank you so much for being here today. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to have a very brief recess so that everyone who needs to get home and relax and do homework before they go to bed, empty the dishwasher, make a quick video to send to my house about how you should empty all of those things. But we're going to have a quick recess to let them go, and we will be right back. All right, and we're back. If you were out in the hall and you didn't see, the Warnsdorfer students were here, and they were amazing. But welcome back. This is the good of the cause for the public. Oh, I'm sorry. We did not have the student representative's report tonight. He could not be here. Correct. But we miss him. And the good of the cause for the public. The Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. In order to permit the fair and orderly expression of such comment, the board shall provide a period for public comment at every meeting of the board. Residents are welcome to speak up to 3 minutes. The timing will be kept by the board secretary. I would just request when you step up to the podium that you state your name and address, unless you are a student. If you're a student, if you could just give your first name and the school that you go to, that would be good. I also want to say this is your opportunity to speak to us. Because we cannot answer at this part, because this is not our time to talk, does not mean that we are not empathetic, sympathetic, frustrated, or hearing what you have to say. We're just glad that you're here. That being said, is there anyone this evening who wishes to address the board?
Good evening. Dom Scolfani, 2 Morgan Place. I stand here today not only as a former student, but as a former student athlete. After hearing about the potential cut, I did what I do best. I created a petition. And over 300 former EB student athletes, parents, and coaches have signed it. I can personally say that middle school sports played a huge part in my life. Because I played middle school football, it made me love the sport, and I made lifelong friends because of it. I enjoyed going to practice as it helped build my social skills and my confidence, as well as keep me active. If it wasn't for middle school, I probably wouldn't have played in high school. And the same is true for a lot of people. Middle school sports help develop programs for the future. And by eliminating them, you are hurting the future of East Brunswick sports, as well as hurting students. I could go on, but I only have 3 minutes. Additionally, I do not think closing Bound is a good decision, as redistricting has not been done in a very long time. If you were to redistrict, wouldn't the class sizes go up? Also, if 5th grade was moved back to the elementary schools, wouldn't that increase the class size as well? I just don't think this was really thought out. I also hope you have a plan for the staff that work there, because firing a whole school full of hardworking staff is just plain heartless. While some of you may say, well, where else are we supposed to get the money? I assure you there is a way. You just have to think outside the box, whether that be shared services with the town, fundraising, applying for grants, implementing environmental measures to help save money, or administrators, here's an idea, take a pay cut. Between the events that happened last year and this year, it is clear the administration does not care about the mental health of students. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Is there anyone else?
Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is David Brown, 43 Tall Oaks Drive, and my concern has to do with special education. We hear a lot of things in the news about cuts on the federal level, the state level, and from other towns in the area. And my concern with having a child out of district and one in an inclusion class here in East Brunswick is with respect to special education. We want to make sure that there's no cuts with respect to the funding of the kids here, and I feel like this is a group of students where you don't hear much about and their voice isn't really heard. So that's where my concern is, that there's a focus on these kids who need special attention and that there's no funding cuts to these kids. And I'd like to hear from the board with respect to that issue.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Do we want people to leave their number or their information with Karen? Mr. Brown, if you would like to leave any information that you have so we could reach out to, if you turn around, the nice lady who's raising her hand. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ashley and I go to Churchill Junior High School. Good evening. My name is Ashley Mataseski and I am a 7th grade student athlete. As a 7th grade student athlete, this was my first year being able to play middle school sports. It is probably one of the best experiences I've had so far. The winter season, I was on the 7th and 8th grade girls basketball team. Today, we wrapped out our basketball season and I have so many memories with my teammates that I've created. New friendships that I would never have before this. As a 7th grader, I got to play with 7th and 8th graders who became my friends, and most of all, I got to learn from them too. I got to be with my friends every day and it was my escape from school. The stress that school would cause me went right away when I stepped in the court. If we end up getting rid of middle school sports, you're ruining myself and other student athletes' ability to learn and get better. Upcoming 7th and 8th grade student athletes who want to enjoy the experience that I've got this year won't be able to. As a multi-sport athlete, I will lose my chance to do the other sports I love most and not get a chance to learn from other coaches and players. I already have got a year off of my LMB being in elementary school. Are you really going to get rid of sports too? Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley.
Jeff Sundberg, East Brunswick staff. Good evening, members of the Board of Education. I have had the privilege of serving as a health and physical education teacher here in East Brunswick for 20 years, as well as the head coach for boys cross country and girls track and field. I want to begin by expressing my appreciation for the dedication and the difficult choices you are facing in addressing our school's district budget challenges. I'm here tonight to speak about the vital role middle school athletics play in the development of our students and the lasting impact these programs have on our high school athletes. In recent years, the administration and board have made significant strides in supporting our programs, such as adding 7th grade to middle school sports and increasing financial allocations for uniforms. These have been meaningful improvements, and I thank you for that. That being said, reducing funding for our athletics would be one of the most detrimental cuts to our students' well-being. East Brunswick already allocates a lower percentage of its operating budget to athletics than most other districts in the state. As an example, according to the proposed 24-25 budget of the State Department of Education website, East Brunswick earmarked $1.2 million for athletics out of a total operating budget of $197 million. In contrast, Old Bridge, despite having an operating budget of $28 million less than ours, proposed over $400,000 more for athletics. Their percentage, which is in line with many other districts' budget commitments to athletics, is significantly higher, demonstrating the value other districts have placed on these programs. At a time when we are increasingly aware of the harmful effects of social media and social isolation in our youth, I ask, is there a more important way to support our students socially, emotionally, and developmentally than through middle school athletics? Student participation is at an all-time high, proving the overwhelming demand. If anything, we should be expanding middle school sports, not cutting them. In fact, the New York Times best-selling book, The Anxious Generation, references in depth the benefit of athletics on youth mental health and physical well-being. Without these programs, how will our students spend their time? More hours in front of screens, missing out on the leadership skills, character building experiences, and physical activity that athletics provide. The impact will be greatest on underprivileged students who cannot afford club sports outside of school. Our high school athletics programs, which have been a source of pride and success, depend on the foundational skills developed in middle school. As a coach, I have spoken with countless former athletes who recall their time in our programs as some of their most cherished experiences. Many have gone on to play collegiate sports, and research from Deloitte shows that over 70% of corporate executives were former college athletes, demonstrating the leadership skills gained through sports. As a parent of a first and fourth grader in the district, I hope my children will have these same opportunities.
10 seconds.
I urge you to consider the long-term impact of your decisions and protect this invaluable investment in our students. Thank you for your time and thoughtful consideration.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hi, Tom Sclafani, 2 Morgan Place, East Brunswick. Ashley, you mind if I ask you a question? It sounds like you have a lot of joy playing on the team, am I correct? Okay, so why would we ever think about taking joy away from kids playing athletics? Think about that. This shouldn't even be a topic, all right? I've been coaching for 5 decades. I've coached the Division I level in college, Division III. I've coached East Brunswick High School, and I currently coach St. Thomas Aquinas. I think one of the biggest problems we're going to see here is the joy that will be taken away from kids. Coach, you hit it on the head. We're going to have a lot of people watching screens all of a sudden. We're going to have people sitting at home, more latchkey kids, because I think some parents sometimes depend on picking up the kids at practice. Sometimes we work a little later, right? It does happen. Do you really want to see a kid have to go home by themselves in the house? Anybody here want to see that?
Mr. Sclafani?
Okay.
Could you address the board, please?
I am. Oh, I didn't look at you. I'm sorry.
Thanks.
My fault. Okay. The basic whole thing in this, and why are we even talking about this? It's mismanagement. And it's on the board. This is years of mismanagement to get at this place today. So I'm hoping that you guys can figure something out, because who's responsible, really? Think about that, on why we have this budget crunch. A few years back, we got a lot of money from the state. I think we thought we were going to get it every year. I hope you didn't think that, because that doesn't happen. My biggest thing is who suffers. Kids suffer. If you let this happen, you will hurt an awful lot of kids that love playing athletics. Coach brought up another great point. Most of your leaders in this world have played athletics. So I hope that you guys are smart enough to really figure this out, because we all put you there for a reason. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jim Logan, 30 Myrtle Road, East Brunswick. I would just like to briefly add to my commentary from the last meeting. Two things that I think are very important that I neglected to mention, or I didn't think about to mention at the last session. There's a lot, as we know, of Facebook and Instagram warriors out there on any side of these polarizing issues, right? But what's unfortunate is when it's not factual or they don't do their homework and have the facts correct. So one of the things that's been said a lot in these various forums since the last meeting is that there are plenty of other alternatives in the township for these types of middle school sports. And I even saw the comment from someone in senior leadership in the town, not on the board, but in the town, say, you know, middle school sports is not a right, and it hasn't really existed that long, so what's the big deal? I think it's beautiful to hear the young lady who spoke already. I wish all of the young adults could come up here and speak about their experiences and what it means to them, because that's really what's most important. However, and I'm speaking for baseball at the moment, but I'm advocating for all middle school sports, the coaches of these travel programs, right, these pay-to-play programs, they finally got smart and they made a conscious decision not to play any games or do any type of structured practices until at least Father's Day. And the reason that they do that is because they want to honor the school programs and the school coaches' expectations and not overwork the kids, especially pitchers, right? And in many respects, that also applies equally to softball. I'm not qualified to speak to the other sports. So my point is, we already have a situation where you have just for middle school baseball, many of which are in the room. I wish there were more, but because of conflicting schedules, they couldn't be here. But middle school baseball has over 25 children who have been, you know, actively, as I said 2 weeks ago, coming to these indoor sessions that we're running. They're enthused, they're motivated, you know, they're willing to pay a bigger share of dues if that's what needs to happen. And just to make sure I don't come across as too biased, I don't even have a child, as much as it breaks my heart, I don't have a child playing anymore. They're still in the district, but they're not playing sports. But I love these children, and many of them I've known since the 4th grade, and I'm proud to see the varsity graduate this year. I'm still going to be invested in that program whether I have a child in it or not, because I love this community and I love these children, and it's vital that we find a way to keep the middle school sports. My last comment, let's make sure we're making the decisions, because obviously the money needs to come somewhere. We know that, right? Doesn't matter why we're here. The money has to come from somewhere. But what we decide to cut, let's make sure the decisions are based on facts and not sentimentality, right? Everyone is sentimental about, you know, a school or a different program. I get it. But if the money has to come somewhere, business is business. Let's make the decisions based on facts and not sentimentality. Let's not hurt these children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Hi, my name is Erica Batista, 22 Myrtle Road.
Could you repeat your name, please?
I'm sorry?
Could you repeat your name, please?
Erica Batista,
Thank you.
22 Myrtle Road. I'm here on behalf of my 3 children, giving a voice to the voiceless, because I think closing Bound Monroe would be a huge mistake. We came to East Brunswick 5 years ago because our goal was to live in a diverse town with a great school system, just like everybody else here. Yet over the past few years, there's been nothing but disappointments with our schools. First, my oldest son got the short end of the stick during his first and only year at Hughes. Then he was one of the first kids to use the trailers at Churchill, which, by the way, is a terrible safety issue with how small and narrow those hallways are. The first day I went there, I was very and extremely upset. And now you want to shut down Bound. Year after year, we, the people who fund this town, continue to pay more and more and get less and less. My youngest son, who's in pre-K 4 at Bound, came home with scratches at the beginning of the year because his class had 15 toddlers between the ages of 3 and 4, and at the time they only had 2 teachers. Our wonderful principal was able to get extra aides after I had a conversation with her on why this was happening. And that was a solution, getting more teachers. So you mean to tell me that the solution to the budget issue is to cut down on teachers, less school and bigger classes? Less schools and bigger classes. We, the residents of East Brunswick, deserve to understand exactly where our tax money is being allotted to and how the budget is being distributed. I am extremely disappointed and upset at the thought of closing down our school, which brings me to think, is it your salaries that we need to adjust? Because it makes no sense to me that we continue cutting down, reducing, and taking away from our children versus reassessing and adjusting in other areas. It is concerning that while the budget triples over the years and my taxes continue to go up, the solution, in your opinion, is to take away the exact perks for which people come to live here in the first place, like sports and arts. I will happily pay my expensive taxes if we're giving what we're promised. East Brunswick Township has made promises they cannot keep. If we, the residents, allow this to continue to happen, it will only be the beginning to more and more cuts, resulting in a basic school system and basic town to live. So I stand here today because I genuinely, wholeheartedly believe that closing Bound Monroe would be a huge mistake. It is up to us, the parents, and all of you sitting here today, to make sure that we're making the right decision in the best interest of the children. Because it is us, the residents of East Brunswick, that pay the taxes that fund our schools, your salaries, arts, and sports. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica.
Hi, John Schendel, East Brunswick staff.
Your last name again, please?
John Schendel.
Thank you.
Good evening. I want to thank you all for all your time and energy you put into this district. I've been in the district for over 10 years as a teacher and coach from middle school all the way to the high school levels. East Brunswick Public Schools has been known for many great things, and one of those is our sports programs from middle school levels all the way up to the high school levels. As a Group 4 school, middle school sports work as a vital feeder program for our varsity programs, in that they can compete for 2 years, grades 7 and 8, in a competitive environment against the best in Middlesex County while growing and developing individually, but more importantly as a team and a community. East Brunswick Middle School sports are known for having big numbers, and it's truly the building block for athletics, which is why it's important to have. This fall, we had 167 athletes on 6 teams. This winter, we had 84 athletes on 3 sports teams for a total of 251 athletes. In the spring, it's still pending, but we have over 150 athletes trying out for 4 sports. Middle school athletics provides the students with extracurricular activities that they look forward to every day. It gives them the opportunity to try a sport they never played before or a sport they really enjoy and want to continue play in a highly competitive setting. For some, this is the reason they want to do well in their academics, so they can be eligible and play the sport they love. It gives them something to look forward to at the end of the school day. Churchill Junior High School would lose the excitement and culture for sports with it not being there. In the morning announcements, we get to hear about excellence in athletics, which students look forward to hearing their names and their friends' names daily. Outside the gym at Churchill, we have display cases of all the success middle school sports has had in East Brunswick, and the spring track records painted on the wall. East Brunswick has been well represented in the GMC as well. Talking about some of the individual sports, wrestling has had 7 county champions, and they were 2nd overall in the GMC this past season. Girls basketball has had an undefeated season and a 1-loss season. Boys had a 1-loss season this past season. Cross-country girls and boys were both 2nd in the GMC championship meet. Spring track, boys were 2nd, girls were 6th in the GMC championship meet this past season. And we also had 3 records broken. Field hockey has had an undefeated season. Girls soccer had a 1-loss this past season. Softball, a 1-loss season. Baseball, a 9-5 season. Our surrounding districts all have middle school sports. Just to name some: Old Bridge, South Brunswick, North Brunswick, Monroe, Piscataway, South River, Spotswood, Middletown, Sayreville, Metuchen, Middlesex, even St. Bart's, and the list goes on and on. All have middle school sports. We have some even have 2 teams, which also include 6th graders. The importance of schools, sports for children is endless. Physical and mental health, social skills, academic performance, time management, confidence, boosting self-esteem, problem solving. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schendel.
Hello. My name is Dana Sclafani, 2 Morgan Place. I was brought to this meeting today for my brother's intention. So I mainly just want to talk about some things. I made a pros and cons list. So the only pros I could think about for 8th grade sports getting taken away is hopefully that money goes to the high school sports. But I don't know where it's going to end up going, and it's probably not going to go there. So when it comes to the cons and thinking about taking away 8th grade sports, so I am a proud alumni of East Brunswick. I graduated in 2015. When I was in school here. I mean, East Brunswick sports was a powerhouse, and it sounds like there's up and coming amazing athletes as well. I feel like taking away 8th grade sports is taking away motivation, mainly out of the kids in elementary school and middle school right now who are looking forward to the 8th grade sports. You guys are increasing more moves out of East Brunswick because of this. East Brunswick is known for their sports, or at least back in my day it was. But you're probably increasing mental problems, mental health issues actually, when it comes to kids who cope with sports. I know I was definitely one of those, and not wanting to even be in your house from the hours of 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. And let's just face it, no parent really wants their kids in the house at that time either. But when it comes to it, I definitely think it's something that, looking at it, seeing young kids talk about this issue right now, I mean, no matter what, you're taking away brotherhoods and sisterhoods that do develop over time. And I mean, I could say it for sure, speaking on Ashley's behalf, is the kids I played 8th grade sports with are still my closest friends to this day. And we achieved losing games, winning games, changing the game, being game changers. And that's some of the best things that I can even look back on of East Brunswick. When it comes to it, I have so many memories of me and my teammates now, and even just putting the issue on social media, so many of my former teammates were shocked to even hear this issue come up. I was lucky enough when I was in 8th grade, playing 8th grade sports, my older brother was a senior at the time, and seeing him and his brothers now, his friends, go about winning and accomplishing such a big season, that's something I wanted to do. And, that motivation of just one person, that's all you need to basically go about having a whole team develop that same motivation.
10 seconds.
So off that, I definitely think you're going to regret if you do that. And I think it's pretty hypocritical that you guys have young kids come in here talking about a Let Grow program when you want to build the community together when you're taking away from them.
Thank you, Dana.
Arun Ayagari, 20 Brook Hill Road. I was here last month to talk about the installation of vaping monitors in, slightly off topic, but the installation of vaping monitors in high school. I'd like to thank the Office of Superintendent. I got a call from the principal of the high school. We had a long conversation, exchanged a lot of ideas. Apparently and obviously, expense could be a factor in installing the vaping monitors. I understand that, but I'm pretty resolute about this. We still need to find a way to have the vaping monitors installed. If not all, at least a couple to start with. I suggested to the principal to have a pilot project, like start with 1 or 2 at the most in most suspicious places in high school. And I'm here today because I promised my students that I will bring this up at the podium, and I owe them an answer. It's been about 3 weeks. The principal called me. I really appreciate his time. We had about a 45-minute call. He promised me that he would call me back, so I'm waiting for his call. If you guys could have a reminder to the principal, and also thank him for his time spent and talking to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arun.
Karen Elmore, 20 Hamlin Road. Over the past few years, there's been a lot of debate about how we should be teaching our children to read. Neuroscience research has shown that leading with phonics is essential for laying a strong foundation for reading. There's one reading curriculum that's particularly criticized by this research, the Units of Study, founded by Lucy Calkins. The Units of Study has been criticized for several of its components, notably the use of 3Qing. 3Qing is a set of reading strategies that encourages new readers to guess the word on a page based on context, rather than explicitly sounding it out first. 3Qing lays a foundation of bad reading habits and undermines phonics instruction. 11 states have banned 3Qing from their reading curriculums. New York City is phasing out Units of Study in all its public schools. Columbia University's Teachers College recently dissolved a literacy organization led by Lucy Calkins in the face of mounting evidence against her approach. Lucy Calkins has since rebranded under the name Mossflower and published an updated Units of Study curriculum. The Mossflower curriculum claims to have added more phonics instruction. But what district would trust an untested phonics curriculum developed by someone who overlooked phonics research for decades? I think most parents in East Brunswick would be surprised to find out that our school district uses Units of Study as its primary reading and writing curriculum. East Brunswick stuck with Units of Study even after its recent criticism and purchased the updated Mossflower Units of Study in 2023. I learned about East Brunswick's use of Units of Study last year from a fellow parent. I was surprised because I had only ever heard about Hegarty and foundations from my daughter's school. The website makes the language arts website makes no explicit mention of Units of Study. With this knowledge that we were using it, I worked with my kindergartner at home on phonics, and I actively discouraged 3Qing. She's doing well with her reading, but I still see her slipping into guessing words. It's a difficult habit to break. I know there's a lot of focus tonight on the not-so-new budget concerns and so many impossible budget cuts. I know a new curriculum is not cheap, but I do wonder how much we could save on reading coaches if we had an effective reading curriculum. More importantly, what is the cost to our children and our township when we stick with Units of Study?
Thank you, Karen.
Tatiana Jordan, 27 North Drive. I appreciate the board members who genuinely engage with and prioritize parents' concerns. I hope all board members demonstrate a willingness to critically examine, question, and hold the administration accountable for the decisions they have made, continue to make, and will make in the future. Recently, I met with administrators to discuss the ILA curriculum. Unfortunately, I left the meeting neither hopeful nor convinced that this curriculum adequately meets the needs of our students, particularly those who struggle with reading. Instead, the discussion only reinforced my belief that Units of Study curriculum is detrimental to students' academic success. I can't help but wonder, would my son and so many other children be facing these challenges if there were a stronger emphasis on phonics and phonemic awareness instruction rather than reading and writing workshops, a core component of Units of Study curriculum? If a different instructional approach had been chosen, would we even be in this position? Unconvinced by the ILA supervisor's defense of this curriculum, I had my child independently assessed outside the district. The results spoke volumes. The specialist confirmed that my child requires targeted, explicit reading intervention, contrary to what administrators claimed during our meeting. I was told that because my child was considered on grade level, he was only eligible for Tier 1 interventions within the classroom. Additionally, the school's reading specialist could not provide further support due to an already overwhelming caseload. When I inquired about the reasons for this high caseload, I was given a vague response about changing demographics and a transient population. The ILA supervisor insisted that my son was receiving adequate support through shared reading, small group instruction within the classroom, and partnered reading. Yet the independent assessment revealed he struggles with phonemic awareness, phonics, decoding, and oral reading fluency. The specialist's recommendations stated that he should not be engaging in independent or partnered reading, both key components of Units of Study, but instead receiving targeted, explicit instruction. If this curriculum is as effective as claimed by the administration, and I quote from my meeting by the ILA supervisor herself in regards to Units of Study, that phonics, quote unquote, phonics leads this curriculum, why does the district have to supplement it with Hegarty and foundations? Why the patchwork approach? Why such a glaring discrepancy as evidenced by an outside assessment? Why is this administration so unwilling to acknowledge that Units of Study simply doesn't work? My son is getting what he needs now, not because of the administration, but because his teacher advocated for him, collaborated with colleagues, and partnered with us as parents to ensure he received the necessary support. We are deeply grateful for her expertise and unwavering dedication. Meanwhile, the administration continues to push the curriculum that is failing our
10
children.
seconds.
Parents deserve transparency, and more importantly, our students deserve an education that meets their needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Tatiana.
Hi, Michelle Bethy, 5 Watchung Road. I'm here to share a parent's language arts testimonial. Her son is a 5th grader at Hammershold's. To quote, Despite his best efforts, he is struggling significantly, particularly in reading, where he's currently performing at a first grade level. This gap has persisted, and despite multiple meetings, no effective resolution has been reached. Throughout these meetings, I've had to argue and fight every step of the way to ensure that my son's needs are properly addressed. Each discussion has felt like a struggle to make progress, and despite my repeated concerns about his lack of support, no meaningful changes have been made. The academic gap continues to widen instead of closing. I am also deeply concerned about the fact that the district promotes itself as being Orton-Gillingham certified. However, it appears that no one at the school is actually certified in this specialized training. The district's promotion of this certification is misleading, as it suggests a level of expertise and support that in reality is not being provided. Given that my son's reading struggles could potentially be addressed through a proven, specialized approach, such as Orton-Gillingham, this lack of properly trained staff is unacceptable. What is especially troubling is the emotional toll these struggles are having on my son. He's very aware of his academic challenges, and it's affecting his self-esteem. He understands that his peers are progressing at a much faster rate, and this has made him feel inferior and left behind. He has expressed frustration and embarrassment about his struggles, which I believe is contributing to a growing sense of isolation. The gap between his reading level and that of his classmates is not just an academic issue. It's deeply affecting how he sees himself, creating feelings of inadequacy and frustration. The school supervisors have stated that they do not believe the gap is severe enough to warrant additional help, but I strongly disagree. The lack of support is only deepening his academic struggles and his emotional distress, and it's clear that his frustration is growing. This situation is taking a toll not just on his academic performance, but also on his sense of self-worth. I urge the district to take immediate action to ensure that the Orton-Gillingham program is implemented by properly certified staff so that students like my son can benefit from it as intended. End quote. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Allegra Seidler, 12 South Woodland Avenue. On November 21st, December 5th, December 19th, January 2nd, 16th, and 30th, I spoke of issues with the district Tier 1 ILA curriculum. You have also heard from other parents. As this remains an ongoing issue, there are a few things to keep in mind. Number one, all concerned parents have praised the teachers and advocated for their access to high-quality materials and for their professional opinions to carry more weight. Number two, we know Hegarty and foundations are used, but they are supplementary materials. The need for their implementation is predicated on the deficiencies of the balanced literacy products, units of study, and Fountas and Pinnell. With that, foundations is not implemented with fidelity, meaning the steps shown to produce the most success are not reliably taken. And what we haven't even touched on is the lack of evidence behind Hegarty, but there's that too. Number three, the use of such supplements, while better than nothing, has some substantial documented weaknesses. Leveled texts, with which the district does use, do not align with the scope and sequence of products like foundations, resulting in minimal reinforcement of spelling and sound patterns, which is essential. Due to this, texts do not complement what has been explicitly and systematically introduced. Combined with the extensive independent reading time occurring in the workshop model employed by units of study, children are regularly left to struggle on their own. This has been shown to cause regression and the misidentification of areas of weakness. We see the enormous task teachers are faced with in compensating for the subpar products and methodology underpinning the entire curriculum. What we really wonder, though, is why. Why did East Brunswick choose to invest more money into the revised units of study in spite of the known deficiencies? We've asked to see district-wide data supporting the current structure, and we have yet to see it. Maybe that's what we will see tonight, but I somehow doubt that. What I expect to hear tonight is a lot of, we do this too, and in my class we do this, generally glossing over what I think we have shown is insufficient. And that is not because teachers aren't capable. It's because the curriculum, the base and the structure it provides are a hindrance to teachers and students alike. The time wasted, the poor habits created, the gaps in foundational skills, they all need to be compensated for, and that's no small task. We were given a very basic MTSS showing 80% of students being served by Tier 1. 80% is the low end of the 80 to 90% that you want to see being served by Tier 1, which means there is unquestionably room for improvement. But from the stories you have heard, there should be a question as to how many are actually being appropriately served in that tier versus how many are being held there to no benefit of their own. A strong Tier 1 curriculum,
seconds.
which Units of Study is not, would effectively serve more students, thereby decreasing the strain on intervention resources. I am imploring the board and the district to put the interest of our students over the ideological commitment to a problematic methodology. Thank you.
Thank you, Allegra.
Michael Mistruzzo, 27 Colonial Drive. Good evening. Last week, I stood before you to express an interest in finding other ways to manage the budget without having to cut middle school or freshman sports and possibly other programs. From all the folks that have spoken last week and tonight, and probably some others, I'm hoping this can all be compelling to understand that this is not the direction we should be taking to keep our schools competitive and also demonstrate the excellence that Mrs. Jen Figueroa pointed out last week. It's known that other townships who have taken this approach may not have seen the financial results they were desiring, and perhaps in some instances may have seen other aspects of those townships regress. Please do understand that this impacts all of us. First and foremost, it impacts our kids. And for all the kids that are out here tonight that either play freshman, middle school sports, past, present, future, can you please raise your hand? First and foremost, it impacts them. But also, it impacts the place we live. Let's not let financial challenges dictate our future. In fact, let's use this as an opportunity to demonstrate how we overcame this challenge and be a model for other jurisdictions in New Jersey. Otherwise, we run the risk of being another statistic of a township that took what may seem to be an easy solution, which, unfortunately, my concern will have a negative impact on all of us in years to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Is there anyone else? All right. Seeing none, I'm going to close the public portion. All right, which leads us to special reports.
We do.
All right.
We have a report tonight by Dr. Boley and her team about our Gifted and Talented program and our K through 6 language arts program. This is information for the community and the board. Dr. Boley?
Good evening. First, I'd like to thank the board for providing us the opportunities to speak with you this evening. I'd also like to state that we value and appreciate the feedback that we have received and continue to receive, and we are thoughtfully and thoroughly examining and reflecting on all aspects of it. Our Gifted and Talented program. In grades 7 through 12, we have been and continue to offer a diverse range of courses, including electives with honors and AP options, various clubs and leadership activities, independent study opportunities, a variety of co-curricular activities, academic contests, and student-led initiatives. At Hammersholt, we have been providing pull-out instruction, a diverse range of courses, including an array of electives, Math Prime, individualized programs of study, adaptive technology, many clubs, leadership activities, academic contests, and student-led initiatives. This year, all of our students at Hammersholt are receiving Tier 1 gifted lessons designed to promote divergent thinking, curiosity, and imagination, and our pull-out instruction continues for students deemed to require those services. For K-4, our teachers are masters at differentiating instruction, enabling students to work at their own ability levels. Many of our elementary schools have and continue to provide Win Time What I Need, where students are grouped across classrooms in an effort to meet their individualized needs. We offer individualized programs of study for students who require such, adaptive technology, a range of special area courses, opportunities for clubs, leadership activities, academic contests, student-led initiatives. Our fifth graders had been engaging in passion projects prior to their move to Hammersholt. And new this year, all students in K-4 will be receiving gifted Tier 1 lessons, again designed to promote divergent thinking, curiosity, and imagination. Our pull-out instruction will be beginning for our grades K-4 students. All of this is based on the Strengthening Gifted and Talented Education Act, which Governor Murphy signed into law in 2020. I'd like to read the blue to you. The law states that districts need to make adjustments or modifications to instruction, enabling a student who is gifted and talented to participate in, benefit from, and demonstrate knowledge and application of the New Jersey Student Learning Standards in one or more content areas at the instructional level of the student, not just the student's grade level. The law mandates certain requirements for school districts. The law does not specify any specific curriculum to be used, how services must be provided, or the purchase of testing materials. When we speak with colleagues in other districts throughout the state, all districts seem to have their own take on the Strengthening Gifted and Talented Act. Earlier this year, Dr. Moran was at a conference, and there were 30 coordinators in the room, and the moderator asked them to share out what their districts were doing in regards to providing gifted services, and there, of course, were 30 different answers. It is not a one-size-fits-all. In regards to using multiple measures, we have been using local data to identify students' unique needs. With our understanding of recent availability of grant funds, we were able to secure the Naglieri test. With a lens of equity, we liked this test with the nonverbal piece that it offers, thinking that would be quite valuable for certain students with special needs, as well as our multilingual learners. We will be testing kindergarten, second, and fourth graders this year, first and third graders on demand at parent request, and then those first and third graders will be screened next year. And that is an overview of our gifted and talented program. Questions or comments?
Would anyone from the board like to ask anything at this time?
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving into reading for K-6, I'd like to welcome up our wonderful language arts supervisor, Ms. Meryl Bucourtney, as well as many of our fabulous teachers who Ms. Bucourtney will introduce to you momentarily. And they would like to provide for you an overview of our reading program this evening.
I apologize. My voice is not great tonight, but thank you for allowing me to be here along with representatives from many of our elementary schools to share what we're doing to support reading development in our early learners. Overall, for the reading curriculum, the units of study in reading is one component of it. Along with that, we deliver phonics through the Foundations program. We do our own internal orthographic mapping of high-frequency words, and then we use Heggerty for phonemic awareness. And in the upper elementary school, our students utilize patterns of power for grammar and conventions work. The units of study in reading is what we're using as a primary resource. The workshop format is something that we believe we see value in. It begins with a mini lesson that is focused on different skills and strategies, both related to phonics, fluency, as well as comprehension. The mini lesson is delivered to the entire group for a time frame of between 8 to 10 minutes, and then the class moves into work time. During this time, some students are reading independently. They're reading a combination of decodable readers, which match their phonic decoding level, as well as books within the band of text complexity that matches their reading needs. And at this time, the teacher is pulling small groups to do explicit reading instruction based on the needs of students. And if a group is not appropriate to the data, they may work with students one-on-one. During this work time, there's something called the mid-workshop teaching point, where the group is paused and an additional piece of teaching is offered. Sometimes it's based on what the teacher is seeing in his or her groups or conferences, or at times it's something pre-planned that might augment or add on to what was presented in the mini lesson. And then the end of the workshop time, the students are meeting at times for the share. Sometimes that is with partners, sometimes it is in a whole group to kind of reinforce and review the skills and strategies that they were practicing during that time. I would like to invite Kristen Bubness, a fourth grade teacher at Bound Monroe, who will share how the units of study curriculum and the workshop model for instruction provide her with time and structure to support the range of readers in her room through small groups and conferences.
Hi. My name is Kristen Bubness, and I've had the pleasure of teaching at Bound Monroe School for 22 years, the entire time I've been in East Brunswick. In implementing the Reader's Workshop model using the units of study, the greatest benefit that I've seen in the 3rd and 4th grade classes that I've been in is the ability to differentiate for the needs of all the readers in my classroom. In just this past week, I've worked with many different small groups on a variety of different skills and strategies, whether it was a group working to understand how character motivation influences the events of a story, a group reading several short texts to determine common themes, or a group learning strategies for figuring out multi-syllable words with unusual vowel patterns. The units of study and the reading workshop model provide me with the time and structure to make sure each student's needs are met, so that they can continue to be strong readers. As for the rest of the students not working with me, what are they doing? Well, that's the best part. They're doing the important work of practicing the skills and strategies that I've taught them. But please don't tell them that it's work, because according to them, they're just sitting at their seats reading a great book. Thank you.
Another important aspect of the units of study in reading is the time for interactive read aloud. During the interactive read aloud, the teacher reads a picture book or a chapter book to their students, pausing frequently to invite student thought, to think aloud, and to model the strategies. This allows us to help our students access text that they might not be able to read on their own. And we also are proud of the multicultural nature of the text that we utilize for this portion. In kindergarten through 2nd grade, we have an aspect of the read aloud that's called shared reading, where a text is displayed for all students to see to practice much of the phonic and decoding work actively with the teacher to get exposure to instructional level texts that are a bit beyond what they could read independently. I would like to invite Anne-Marie Curtis, a 3rd grade teacher at Warrenstoffer, up, who will share how the read aloud builds a class culture of reading, reinforces reading skills and strategies, and supports her students in their preparation for the NJSLA.
Thank you. I teach 3rd grade, Anne-Marie Curtis, at Warrensdorfer.
Mr. Cummings' daughter is in my class. So this is one of our favorite times of the day because we get to huddle together, we get to meet a new friend in a book. We could talk about all the great things that are happening, comprehension, listening skills, talking to each other, having those conversations. But that's where I think the beginning of all that deep thinking really happens for our kids. The ones who are not quite up to that same reading ability or are our new students, English language learners, this removes all of that for them, and it still makes that text accessible because I'm reading it and they're listening, and then they get to turn and talk. And maybe they don't have a thought right then and there, but now they've heard from another student and they can share that out. So it gives them that other piece where they get to be a part of that reading community, even if they couldn't read that book on their own. And I think that's really important. We practice a lot of skills during Read Aloud. A well-planned read aloud will allow me to ask different students different types of questions based on maybe their reading goal at that time. We might focus on different tasks as the year goes on. In the beginning of the year, we might be looking at vocabulary or visualizing. Now we're doing units of study where we're talking about characters. So we're having a lot of trait conversations and feelings and how are characters changing. By doing this in a shared read aloud, they can then do it on their own. And that's what, like Kristen was talking about, we're asking them to do on their own, but we've done it together the first time so that they have more accessibility later on. They know exactly what I want them to do. They might turn and talk, they might stop and jot. We're including writing skills. I think so many skills are involved in that read aloud that we're getting together. We refer all year long. We're still talking about the very first read aloud that we read. They're still talking about the characters. They'll say like, oh, Suds is like that. Oh, he did that. Oh, remember Chipmunky? That's from September. And it's still impacting the reading they're doing now when they refer back to him. Or they go, oh, my character's just like that. That's deep thinking in reading. And when we use a one size fits all, we're not accessing that. Having that experience together makes it also, I don't want to say easier, but when I do small groups, we're using that as an example so that we've all come from the same place. And when I give them an example of something new I want them to do, it's more understandable for them because we've done a little bit of it together. But really the best part is when we're all just huddled together listening and learning about this character and meeting a new friend. There's no sounds in the room. They're all super engaged. You can hear a pin drop. Thank you.
Thank you.
In kindergarten and first grade, we utilize the Hegarty Phonemic Awareness Program. Phonemic awareness is a foundation for reading and spelling skills, which allows children to identify and manipulate individual sounds within words, which is essential for decoding and encoding words when learning to read and write fluently. This was something that we brought into the district during the 21-22 school year, when we acknowledged that this was some important foundational work that our students didn't have. And this is something that is frequently used as a supplement or addition to a core curriculum across both the state of New Jersey and on a larger nationwide level. What is great about this is that there's a large kinesthetic portion to it that's highly engaging for our students. You even see sometimes when students are at their seats, one of the activities is for short vowels. Let's say they were doing the word cat, they go cat, and you see them at their seat when they're doing their writing and all the kids are doing their little roller coasters. So we've definitely seen this have a positive impact on students, and it's accelerated their work within the phonics. We utilize the Foundations as our Tier 1 phonics program in kindergarten through third grade. It works with students on their handwriting, the actual formations of the letters, their special paper that has lines and cueing systems on the paper to help the students kind of know which letters go to the top, like a lowercase h, and which stay in the bottom, for example, like a lowercase a. Decoding is the student's ability to read the words using the ability to sound out both individual letter sounds as well as larger groups of sounds. Their encoding is writing of the words, which eventually we think of as spelling, and then their general writing as they do write sentences as well and practice some of the rules for early conventions. I now invite Rachel Solomon, the reading specialist at Warnstoffer and a former primary teacher, to provide some information about how the Foundations program supports students in developing these encoding and decoding skills.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Solomon, Warnsdorfer's reading specialist. So the Foundations program is used with all students in Tier 1 instruction. It helps our students learn to read and spell by providing explicit instruction in phonics and phonemic awareness. Students begin this program by learning the relationships between letters and sounds, which is an essential skill for reading and spelling. This begins with very simple letter sound associations such as P says P, and continues into more complex sound structures with blends such as st, digraphs like sh, vowel teams, and diphthongs like oi. As students progress through this program, they are exposed to sequential lessons that target blending and segmenting of sounds in words in isolation and within larger text. By the end of 3rd grade, our students will have learned how to break apart multisyllabic words, add suffixes to base words, and to notice when a part of a word has a schwa vowel sound. Schwa is like the A in away and the E in jacket. The ultimate goal of these lessons, which promote the importance of reinforcement and repetition, is to provide enough exposure for our students to reach a level of automaticity when reading and spelling words within larger text.
The last component of our reading instructional program is the orthographic mapping of high-frequency words. This is something that was also new to us. I know that there's a lot of conversation in general about kind of how high-frequency words are taught, and even years ago when I began as a teacher in this district, it was still a lot about memorization, but research shows that that's not what's most effective for students. So within orthographic mapping, we teach students to recognize the parts of the words that are decodable, where they know the letters and sounds, and then there are other parts that they need to learn by heart. That's why we call it a heart word. So looking at the word what, the WH is a decodable sound that our students would have learned, as is the T at the end, but the A in that word is a schwa, as Rachel just referred to, so it doesn't say ah, so we teach students to learn that sound by heart so that they can decode those words and apply their knowledge. There are some words that, like the word run, that's fully decodable, and we call that a flash word because you can read it in a flash. I'd like to invite Jody Kroll, whose classroom is pictured in here, a 2nd grade teacher at Central, to briefly share about her experience with this high-frequency word instructional method that we began utilizing district-wide in K-1 during the 22-23 school year and last year in 2nd grade.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, I'm Jody. A 2nd grade teacher at Central, and also, for the record, a proud alumni of East Brunswick High School. I'm not going to say what year, a long time ago. And my husband and I moved back here from the city and raised our 3 girls who are also proud alumni of East Brunswick High School. So that is my classroom. As Miss McCourtney, sorry, we're both getting over something, just mentioned to you, I'm actually very proud of this work that we do. As you mentioned, it really is important. We know the research shows us that memorizing words means nothing anymore. And so what we do is at least for my 2nd grade students, they've given me a lot of good feedback. And as I teach this, they're like, Mrs. Kroll, this makes a lot of sense. And I think when things make sense to you, it's a lot easier to learn and understand. So what we do is we introduce one of these heart words. The heart words don't follow our regular decoding rules. So we have a well-honed routine where we literally introduce the word, we say the word repeatedly, we sound out the word, we talk about what the word means, and then we look very specifically at the parts of the word that don't make their regular sound. So I'm a big fan of, I think it's up there, of looking at the word said. So we would look at the word said, and you would hear, we would say said, and we would talk about what it means. We would repeat it many times. We would look at the syllables, and then we would literally, we're big choppers in 2nd grade, and we would chop apart the word for sound. So s, d. And I would explain as we go through, that S is regular, makes the regular sound, D makes the regular sound, but AI, which is a vowel team, which often says the long A sound, in this case, my kids know we have to learn it by heart because in this case, AI says And so it makes a lot of sense. And the reason the word well is up there is it's very easily accessible. It stays up there once we learn a word. It stays up all year until the very last day of school. And they're welcome to use it as they're reading, as they're writing. And we also, in second grade, we're big on our agenda. We write down our homework, and we also write each week. We introduce 2 or 3 new heart words, and we will be writing them in our agenda as well. Thank you.
As we discussed previously, and as Kristen shared, one of the ways that this workshop model really works for us is because there's time for us to support students based on their individual needs. We utilize a battery of assessments beginning in kindergarten with concepts of print, which is as early as book handling skills. Does the student know where the title is, where the spine is, what to do when they finish a page? We move from there into letters and sounds, then into the Heggerty and the phonics. As you can see, the assessments get, for lack of a better term, more rigorous as we move through, but each of them provides teachers with meaningful data to utilize to determine how they should use that work time and what type of groups they should be planning for. At the formative level, we have, teacher observations when they confer. As Anne Marie shared, sometimes they're jotting notes about their reading. That's great data for teachers to review. How they perform in the small group, checking their notebooks. There's a lot of opportunities for us to see how students are doing and then provide targeted support to them based on their data. Jody will join us again. This time she's going to share how she uses assessment data, specifically the phonic decoding assessment, to group her students and provide them with intentional instruction.
So, like Meryl mentioned, we did start this a few years ago, and it's, again, I found it's what I use in my class routinely. What I love about it, it's an ongoing assessment. It's not like a one and done. I'm constantly doing this throughout the year. It has 12 levels. We literally start at level 1 for decoding. It goes up through level 12. If you get to level 13, you are proficient. It starts fairly simple, like those CVC words, and it goes, level 12 is more like multi-syllabic words. What I like is, as I mentioned, it's an ongoing assessment. What I also really like about it, the kids read the words to us, but while they're reading the words, we're also taking notes on how they're reading those words. Like, for example, are they sounding out sound by sound, or are they reading by syllable? Are they fluently just, sort of breezing through the word? I think those anecdotal notes are especially helpful. And then based on, it's a set amount of words that they go through, sometimes it's 12, sometimes it's 15, but based on the percentage that they get correctly, we then make a determination. Often it's 80%. If they get 80% correct, they're able to move on. But again, we also rely on those anecdotal notes, because even if someone had a fairly good percent and I'm concerned about their fluency, that might be something that I would look at. But what I really like is, as they're divided up into categories, we're able to see right then and there. That day, I could make a small group and know, okay, that's the decoding strategy that I need to work on. I need to stop here, or I could move on to the next level. And it's really specific, targeted instruction for decoding, which I find exceedingly helpful in my classroom.
And just one thing to add that I think is that teacher appreciate about this assessment is that it has a combination of real words and nonsense words, because we know that some students have just a really strong sight vocabulary from just reading a lot with their family at home and in school, but some of the words are, not real words, like the word niff, and that really tests, are you able to kind of put those sounds together and apply your letter sound knowledge in decoding. And in order for a student to be proficient, they would have to get some of those words correct as well, which gives us an extra indication of their ability to really decode. I'm also going to take some time just to speak to you briefly about some Tier 2 and 3 support. So as we shared during the work time in the classroom, the students are getting targeted Tier 1 support after the mini lesson based on the data. But for those students who need additional support beyond what can be offered in the classroom, they receive support from the school's reading specialist. Now, most of our students who are receiving the basic skills instructional support are either receiving a phonics-based intervention, which has to do with the decoding of words, or a comprehension-based intervention, which has to do with their understanding and making meaning of a text. We typically focus on ensuring that the phonics, is tightened up, and the students have, like Jody shared, reached that about level 13 on that assessment before we move into comprehension, because they're still getting comprehension work in their classroom through the mini lesson, through the read aloud, and through the shared reading. But for their intervention, we want to focus on that being kind of the first part of the hierarchy before moving into comprehension. Most of our students receiving the phonics are typically our first and second graders, and some point in second grade, early third, students in intervention move into their work with comprehension. I'm going to invite Rachel back again. She's going to now put on her specialist hat and talk with us about what a week of instruction might look like for students receiving either a phonics or comprehension-based intervention.
Thank you. I'm back. So I was asked to share a little bit about what the reading specialists do all day or all week at the elementary schools. So as Meryl mentioned, students who do not make adequate progress during our Tier 1 instruction will receive additional support as part of our basic skills program. This program is designed to ensure that every child receives the help they need to thrive academically, particularly in reading. We target specific areas of reading where students may be struggling, which can be phonics, fluency, or comprehension. This instruction is provided by a reading specialist where students are placed into small groups based on their needs. The goal of Tier 2 support is to help students improve their reading abilities to reach grade level proficiency. So what does that look like throughout the week? So in a phonics Tier 2 intervention group, we reinforce previously learned concepts while introducing new skills as well. Students will practice new sounds in isolation, read and spell words and sentences, and have an opportunity to read in decodable text. Additionally, we incorporate multisensory activities where students use manipulatives to assist them in identifying sounds they hear in words, as well as for blending and segmenting words auditorily. Students in a comprehension intervention group will receive additional instruction in reading strategies that will assist them in understanding text. Specialists will model the use of a reading strategy and gradually release the responsibility onto the students. Ultimately, the goal of these groups is to provide our students with the skills they need to understand text when they go back to their classroom and they're reading independently. For students who do not make adequate progress during our Tier 2 reading instruction, we offer Tier 3 support as well. This is the most intensive level of support. Goals and objectives are developed and tailored to a student's unique needs. Our interventions follow a familiar format, allowing practice with blending sounds, segmenting words, reading and writing sentences, and working with decodable texts. So the work we do in Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction is intended to provide our students with the necessary support to reach a level of proficiency they need to become fluent and confident readers.
And I meant to add earlier, as you see some programming listed on there, so for phonemic awareness, there's a supplemental resource to the original Heggerty that's called Heggerty Bridge the Gap, which is for students in second grade and above who still have some documented needs for phonemic awareness. And then for the phonics, the specialists kind of make a determination based on the level of the students and how much exposure, if they're going to use the Orton-Gillingham approach, or what's called a double dose of foundations, which is a resource that comes with the Foundation Tier 1 kit that's meant to be used for students who need Tier 2. In comprehension, Rachel mentioned strategy groups. Some of our other specialists, depending on the needs, also use a resource called visualizing and verbalizing, which starts at the picture level, just getting students to be able to describe what's in a picture, moving on to a sentence, into a paragraph, and eventually a passage, because often the reason our students struggle to understand what's happening in a text, problem and solution, character, is because they don't have that automatic mental movie. So that resource helps them to kind of create it for themselves so that they're able to then understand what's happening in the text they're reading. And something that's really important for the success of all tiers of our instruction here in East Brunswick is the support that we provide for staff. We provide professional development in a full-day format at the start of the school year, as well as this year was in November, but another day in the year. The teachers, obviously, in the K-4 setting teach multiple subjects, so they're not only with language arts, but there is targeted work for them in language arts with myself. There's also after-school meetings. Sometimes the focus is on intervention, like what are the different things you can be doing in Tier 1 during the work time to support students. Sometimes the teachers bring their recent data and we analyze it together with a structured protocol to identify kind of what students need, what are trends we're seeing school-wide, district-wide, grade level-wide, and to plan for instruction. And sometimes the work is really to collaborate where we can take colleagues across our 8 buildings and get them together to kind of work on those goals. Another really important aspect of the success of our programming is the collaboration between the teachers, the specialists, and the administrators in their buildings, because everyone really is working to ensure that the needs of students are met and that we're doing everything we can for students. So I'd like to invite Katie Mataseski, one of the current Hughes reading specialists, and a former instructional coach and K-4 specialist, who will share how she works collaboratively with the admin team to review data and ensure the students are getting the support they need.
Hi, Katie Mataseski, as she said, reading specialist at Hughes. At Hughes, we're constantly monitoring student data. And as she said, I previously worked at a K-4 building where we kind of operated in the same way, obviously on a little bit of a smaller scale. At our leadership team meetings, myself as the reading specialist, along with the principal and assistant principals, have a running list of students we are monitoring. Specifically, we're monitoring students at a minimum of a quarterly basis, but really informally much more than that, for a variety of reasons. That they might not be meeting benchmark standards. We then cross-check their names to supports we are offering these students at our school to see what they are receiving and whether or not the interventions have been successful. Based on that information, we make decisions on whether we will continue these supports, release some of the scaffolding, hopefully, or maybe have to increase some of our supports and interventions. Our team works very closely with the counseling team as well as the classroom teachers to make sure we have the whole picture and continue to support these children the best way we can. Thank you.
We all have some health challenges. Okay, so thank you so much, ladies. So we shared an overview with you of our reading program. In New Jersey, all school districts are required to teach according to the New Jersey Student Learning Standards. These standards outline the skills and knowledge that we must teach the children per content area, per grade level. It is mandated that we teach the New Jersey Student Learning Standards, and our curriculum is fully aligned to the New Jersey Student Learning Standards. The resources and materials that districts may choose to use to teach the standards are a local decision. So we heard about our reading program. We talked a little bit about the New Jersey Student Learning Standards. Next, you might ask yourself, well, how are the children doing? So again, in New Jersey, the children are required to take the state test in the springtime. So this test here is called the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment, the NJSLA. So for language arts, our last administration in the spring, looking at our students in grades 3 through 9, the average, and this is the general enrollment students, not students in a subgroup, such as students with learning disabilities or multilingual learners, just our general enrollment students. The average in grades 3 through 9 was 84% proficiency, and you can see the state average of 52%. As they get a little bit older, in 11th grade, all students are required to take the New Jersey Graduation Proficiency Assessment. All 11th graders must take this exam. Our language arts proficiency last year in 11th grade NJGPA was 92% proficiency compared to the state average of 82%. Our graduation rate is 96%. That 4% includes students who are eligible to stay with us until they're 21. And are our students college ready? 94% of our students have been accepted to and plan to attend colleges nationwide. Our students are being successful and continue to be successful in our East Brunswick Public Schools. Thank you. Questions, comments?
Thank you, Dr. Boley.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Boley. Before we move to comments from the board, thank you for your presentation. Thank you so much. I know it's a struggle with your voice, so we appreciate you both being here and putting this together. I really want to thank the teachers, though, for being here and explaining what they do in the classroom.
Thank you all.
I say all the time, if you really want to know about what goes on in a school, ask a principal to take you on a tour because they get passionate about their building. And if you want to know what goes on in a classroom, you have to ask a teacher about their room. But I really want to take the teachers because I know how much energy you brought to it really early this morning to still be here doing this now. So we appreciate you. Any comments or questions from the board? Wilbur?
I'd also like to thank all the teachers. Your passion for teaching just like completely came through tonight, and having some education experience in my past, I really appreciate that as well. I have a few questions, if you don't mind. In terms of the multiple parts of the ILA curriculum, are there any school districts that just use one curriculum and that's what they do for everything, or is this accepted practice?
Sure. I mean, go ahead.
Yeah.
No, in my experience, districts are supplementing.
There's only one curriculum that I know of at this time in the state of New Jersey that doesn't require any supplementing. A lot of other curriculum that have been recently adopted or commonly used definitely need a phonics component with them. I'll just give an example. One of the popular ones statewide is Wit and Wisdom. Art and Letters is their new one, and they actually advocate for the use of foundations as the phonics component. There's very few, one that I'm familiar with that has phonics built in. So the phonemic awareness is something that we chose to supplement because we felt like it was a building block for the phonics, but there's rarely anything that has phonics embedded explicitly and enough of it.
Okay, thanks. The one curriculum that you mentioned, which seems to cover everything, is that a very popular one, or are there a lot of school districts using it?
The Wit and Wisdom program?
I'm guessing that's what you're referring to.
Some districts are,
Mhm.
and some districts are using units of study, and some districts are using other programs.
Okay. Let's see, in terms of the units of study being the primary component of the ILO curriculum, do teachers have the freedom to implement the other components as they see fit for their classroom, or is there a more strict guideline in terms of what can be done across the school district?
It is a scripted program.
Yeah, so the mini lesson, which is the first 8 to 12 minutes, depending on the age level, that comes from the core spiral resource, but basically everything that happens between that and the end of the work time is at the teacher's discretion. So that's where Kristen shared some of her examples, as did Jody, about the different things that they're doing. So there's some suggestions of here, you might do a group about this if you have kids who need, I'll be more specific, you might pull a group working on blends if you have students in your class that need that, or you might do a lesson on character feelings if you have students that need that. But if your data shows you, we're good with blends, I want to do long vowels, you have the liberty and really the empowerment to make those decisions as long as they're backed in your data.
Okay, and is this the preferred method of running the reading section of the class from the teacher's standpoint? What I'm asking is, do the teachers like this approach?
Actually, it's funny that you mentioned that. We've surveyed the teachers,
Mhm.
so we're collecting those pieces of feedback now. We'll leave that survey open a little while longer, give the teachers opportunity to share their input with us, and then we will analyze that data.
Okay. One last question. If we were to get rid of the units of study curriculum today, what would the timeline be to replace the curriculum? How long would it take, and how much would it cost about?
Well, that's a hard question to answer. Depends on what the new program that we would adopt would be, and the cost, and the professional development required, but it would no doubt be a significant financial commitment.
Could it be implemented by the beginning of next school year, or is that an impossible
If the
task?
resources were available, I suppose
Okay.
you could, but I don't.
Yeah, I mean, best practice with any sort of major change, right, of instructional methodology would be to do some intense piloting work. So if we were to arrive at a decision that that was the next step we needed to take, we would advocate for, if with support of obviously the central office and the board, of doing some piloting work where we got representative teachers from across the district to work with the new curriculum, so that we could get feedback on it in real time with real students, and ensure that we get out, some of the kinks of implementation so that we can be more successful large scale. I think, some of the decisions that have had to be made from a budgetary standpoint, we don't have all of the supports to, do something new effectively. So I think a pilot would be really critical to ensure that we're not just throwing something at teachers without the proper amount of support and understanding of the resource before expecting everyone to use it.
Okay. And thanks also for coming out with the voice issues. I once had to do a pediatric ER shift with laryngitis. That was a lot of fun.
Anyone else?
Yes, please. I really appreciated the presentation tonight. Thank you. I do have just one question about the Tier 2 and Tier 3 opportunities for students and learning. Are the educators who are doing these types of interventions, they have certifications? For an example, Orton Gillingham, do we have different types of educational opportunities for these types of educators who are working in this more specialized type of intervention?
All of the reading specialists are Orton trained, and they do have ongoing professional development. They've met with specialists in dyslexia, and they continue to keep their skills current and relevant.
Oh, we're going this way?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. And thank you, Ms. Curtis, my daughter's third grade teacher. So I'll let her know. We bumped into each other this evening. Thank you so much. No, to all the administrators and individuals a part of this, it's great information. Do we have a reading specialist in every school?
Yes, we have at least one reading specialist in all 8 elementary buildings, as well as Hammersholt Upper Elementary, and then some of our schools, based on what the data dictates, have a second or 1.5. Myself, along with the Director of Elementary Education, review the data annually to ensure that we're staffing properly based on the needs of the students in the school, using localized assessment as well as the result of the NJSLA. So just as an example, we recently were able to move a specialist from Irwin Elementary School because the students were doing so well from their Tier 1 instruction that we didn't need it, and we were able to reallocate that position elsewhere where there were more students that could benefit from support. So it's pretty fluid, but the service is available across all of our buildings.
That's great. Thank you. What's the average ratio of reading specialist to student? Yeah.
Most reading specialists work with about 35 students. Of that, I would say about 60% is like that Tier 2, where they're typically seeing them 3 times a week. And then we do Tier 3 fluidly. So based on how that first 3 days went, let's say I'm doing that blend phonic example that I shared. I'm doing that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday with the whole group. And then if I see that Joyce is having some trouble, as Rachel described, then I can invite Joyce to come for 2 more days where she's getting intensive support. Gathering more data, I'm reassessing her to ensure that she's ready to move on with the rest of the group the next week.
That's great. Thank you so much. And if we were to look back on the past 5 years, would those ratios of caseloads, 5 to 10 years, be pretty consistent over the course of the past 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, this is my 4th year in this role, so what's hard is that, some of our new adoption, like the Hegarty, even changing the high-frequency word instruction, those small changes, it's hard to know the impact because it simultaneously coincided with the pandemic's impact, right? So I would say we've been pretty consistent, but something that we're really proud of with our interventionists is that, the goal that Danielle Dinino, the director, and I share every year is our goal is to exit kids out. We want you to work you out of a job, right? Which we know that's not the reality because some students have a range of reading needs, but every month, like the meetings that Katie described, we meet with the specialist quarterly and we celebrate kids who are able to exit out, meaning that they're now making that sufficient amount of progress to get what they need from the Tier 1, and that allows us, if appropriate or necessary, to support other students that maybe perhaps were not as high of a need previously.
Thank you so much. I have one final question, and then I'll stop. The two, and thank you so much. I was waiting for that data at the end, right? Like, really want to see that. The two assessments, those are state mandated at the top of the data page? Yes. Okay. And I'm hearing, and just correct me if I'm wrong, that there's a lot of internal evaluation that is also done where we're really, we're continuing to evaluate best practices and look for improvement. So I just wanted to confirm that was happening in addition to, those are great marks. It's nice to see us above state averages. That would be my expectation of this community. And I guess on that, have we seen those numbers also increase over the past 5 years?
The numbers are increasing. The needs of the community, of our student population are ever changing. So we are, constantly reevaluating our practices to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our students. And as I said earlier this evening, we do value and appreciate the feedback that has been shared with us, and we are taking every piece of it under advisement.
Go ahead.
And how long is a curriculum expected to be used? So you said that the current curriculum is from 2015, is that correct?
We have the revised, but the program, yes.
Right, okay. So how often are curriculums updated or, reassessed and changed?
We reassess our curriculum I'd say every 5 years. We're constantly looking at our student data. We are seeing success. The teacher feedback will be interesting. It had not been previously shared with me, so we'll be very curious to take a look at those results. The parent feedback and the parent shared experiences, lived experiences, had not been shared with me previously. So we are all taking this very seriously and taking it all under advisement.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes. So I want to thank you, Dr. Bully, and your team are doing a very good job. The data doesn't lie. For grade 3 to 9, 84%, for statewide 52, which is a significant difference. For the 11th grader, 92% over 82%. So very impressive. From the presentation first of all, very good presentation, very informative. You guys are doing a very good job. As Katie mentioned that, when the teacher provide intervention to the students who need help, you guys work with the counseling team. Doing this, we'll find out why this student is falling behind. Is it family change or financial or what have parents change? That is very good. Doing this can not just improve students' reading level. It also can help us find out if there are any potential mental family issues. That is great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.
And I have a few more questions about the detail. So you mentioned that we have Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. So how many students are in Tier 1? Tier 2 and Tier 3. And how long will they stay in Tier 2 or Tier 3?
Well, I don't have the data for every school, for every grade level right here. Our reading specialists are being very successful in exiting students from their caseload, which means they're returning down to a Tier 1, where Tier 1 instruction in the classroom with their general education teacher is meeting their needs. Some students, do go through a Tier 3 and are still not finding success, and therefore may be recommended for a child study team evaluation. We have students being serviced who are multilingual learners, and their acquisition of the English language is something that really can't be quantified or put on a timeline. So it's very fluid, and there are a lot of factors impacting the work.
Okay, so even we have 84% for grade 3 and to 9, 92 for 11th grade. Just like early this evening, the Warren Stover kid teach us, let's grow. Let's get 100%. Thank you.
Thank you.
Quick question, kind of going back to gifted and talented. I know that their gifted and talented program is evaluated as part of our QSAC score, whether or not we're in compliance or not. I know we're currently, undergoing our QSAC, but in the past, have we received any negative marks or anything against us for our gifted and talented and not being in compliance?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, we are moving on to our agenda. What I would like to do this evening, which does not in any way shorten our discussion or your questions, is I would like to ask for a motion to move the entire agenda.
So moved.
Ms. Herrick?
Second.
And Jamie? All right. Any discussion? No? All right, I'm assuming this is a roll call vote?
Yes. Anna Braun?
Yes.
Timothy Cummings?
Yes.
Jamie Falco?
Yes.
Louis Figueroa?
Yes.
Lori Herrick?
Yes.
Lee Woo Hong?
Yes.
Lori Lax?
Yes.
Wilbur Pan?
Yes.
Heather Gloss?
Yes. All right, motion carries. We are on to committee reports, information items, and for the good of the cause of the board. But we are starting tonight with the Financial Committee of the Whole.
Yes. Thanks. So, I wanted to begin with a little bit of information that was published yesterday. And in case members of the board or the community hadn't seen this headline, New Jersey faces $3 billion budget hole, and Trump's federal cuts could make things worse. And just one part of one sentence in the introductory paragraph. New Jersey is currently staring down a more than $3 billion structural deficit as Governor Phil Murphy prepares to unveil his next and final state budget proposal this month. That proposal is slated for the end of the month. I believe it's February 25th. The interesting thing, I think, and sadly, regarding a headline like this is it's kind of the preparation for what we might expect in terms of state aid. As we've been talking about not knowing what state aid will be, this headline does not bode well. So I thought that's an important thing to note. I want to share a communication that we received from the Department of Education. So just give me a moment here. Okay. And I'll briefly go over what this communication is about. One of the revenue sources that the district and all districts have in their general fund budget is semi-reimbursement revenue. SEMI is the Special Education Medicaid Initiative. And we have done a lot of work. We do a lot of work annually through the child study teams, administratively, in trying to maximize the amount of revenue that we receive back from the state and ultimately from the federal government. We do all the work, we get the least amount of share of money. And that holds true for every school district. To give you a little bit of an example, we generated in fiscal 2023 $176,000 in revenue. That was a small portion in comparison to what the state gets to keep versus what the federal government keeps. In fiscal year 2024, we generated $122,000 in revenue. And in fiscal year 2025, because of the additional efforts that we had identified necessary to increase that revenue stream, we had budgeted $331,000 in revenue. As a result of an analysis that was done at the federal level, the federal government is reducing the amount of payment for various services provided. So that ultimately reduces what we would be able to budget for revenue. The state just opened up the budget system for us for next year's budget, and they populate what that budget amount is for revenue. That number for fiscal year 2026 is $38,000. That's nearly a $300,000 reduction from what we budgeted in the current year for an estimated revenue amount. You'll see on page 3 of the document I distributed, and this is overall, this is a memorandum that came from the Department of Education. And there has been a lot of activity, a lot of communication happening the last couple of days regarding the impact this has on school districts. But on page 3, you see what the rates are for paying for various services. And you'll see in the first section to the left, what are the previous payment structure. And you can see what the share is. The federal share, federal gets 50% of the share, the state gets 32.5% of the share of funds, and the district share is 17.5%. But when you look at those amounts in the previous section versus the new amounts, they're drastically less. More information to come on this, but I think from a high level, it's important to note that this is a revenue area that will not bode well as we're developing this budget. And just as a point of reference in terms of how many Medicaid eligible students we have, out of approximately 1,400 special education students, 347 are Medicaid eligible. And I said earlier that we do all of the work for the least amount of money, and that is true, because the school districts must do a lot of the work related to validating the services that are being provided in order to be able to submit for reimbursement of Medicaid eligible costs. And that amount is going to be substantially less. I would guess that the effort involved will cost more than the revenue generated for this next year.
And this is something we talked about.
And if I can add
Sure,
one more
go
thing,
ahead,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
It's not optional for us.
Right, I was going to say that.
Because if you look at the first page of that memorandum, the third paragraph, under New Jersey Administrative Code, failure to maximize special education Medicaid initiative requires districts with more than 40 semi-eligible students to participate. I mentioned that we have 347 Medicaid eligible students right now. So we don't have a choice. We must participate. The consequence of failure to participate is a required corrective action plan, and if I remember correctly, also impacts our QSEC scoring.
It does.
I'm sorry, Dr. Valesky.
No, I was just going to reinforce, Mr. Giuliano, what you just said, but this is one of those areas that we're learning about real time right now, sharing with the community just as we learn it. And it's a situation where it's going to, or at least ballparking it, it could end up being a cost to the district, not a revenue to the district. So we just wanted to let you know that.
Okay, handing out another document here. one of the items that we've discussed is the potential for increasing the fees charged for clubs, activities, and athletic registrations. So I'll just walk you through this document. This is looking at, it is an analysis of what our participation is in terms of registrations for each of the various activities for the various seasons, including athletics. The columns are pretty self-explanatory. The gray columns reflect the value of free and reduced registrations. Now, students that qualify for free and reduced lunch do not pay, but this information is more to give you a reference point as to what that value is if there were to be payment from those groups. When we move across this worksheet, when we get into columns I through N, this is providing the calculations for what if the fee for a club were to increase to $20 and the fee for athletics to $75. K goes from 25 to 100, and then M 30 and 125. You'll see in the bottom of columns I, K, and M what that estimated increase in revenue would be. So by increasing the club price to $20 and the athletic price to $75, the increase in revenue is approximately $63,690. By increasing the club price to $25 and athletics to $100, the increased revenue is $127,380, and increasing clubs to $30 and athletics to $125 would result in approximately a $191,000 increase in revenue.
Can I ask, how long have we had, I mean, it's been this way since I've been paying it, but how long have we had the $50 registration fee for athletics and $10 for
I
clubs?
think it's been about 15 years.
It was that way when
Has
I
not
came
changed.
to East Brunswick.
I have also a question, Mr. Giuliani. Mr. Giuliana, the families for more than one kid, is there something that we've normally done in the past for families that might have multiple children? Something that we've done to ease the burden a little bit on payment, even at the $50 level?
Right off the top, I don't believe there is. I think it's $50 per student per sport.
So that would be something that possibly we can incorporate into any increases
We
for the
could take
future,
a look at that.
to
We
take a
have
look
to
at that.
analyze what that impact would
Thank
be.
you.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Giuliano, you're going to ask for these back, right?
Yes.
So any notes on these? I just want to
Yeah.
caution the board members if they're writing notes on these.
Yep.
We're going
because-
to ask for these
yeah, because
documents
we're-
back.
We're not ready for, this is for discussion purposes at this point. And this is on the next document I'm going to hand out as well. We can have discussions on these, but we'll need to recollect them. So, let's see, 2, 3.
Can I explain a little bit?
Yes, please.
Okay. I just want to explain, because the way we're doing it is different this year than in years past. This is the first year that the Finance Committee has been a committee of the whole. So in the past, the Finance Committee would meet with 4 board members and administrators, and then there would be a second meeting with the entire board. This year, we've moved it to a committee of the whole, which means we're doing it from the very first step in public, and everyone working together in hopes that there's not just more transparency, but the communication is more even and level across the board. But we're sorry, some of the documents are still confidential.
So, on page 1, and if you flip through the entire document, you will note that the last 2 pages, that would be 11 and 12, are not included in the packet because, on advice of counsel, because the positions that we'd be talking about are so specific that we really can't have that discussion in a public setting. However, I want to quickly go through the the page one summary of each of the areas, and we are covering adjustments to the elementary school hours in terms of how late the schools would be opened after 6:15. In other words, right now, we are open later. We have access to the buildings later. This first recommendation is that the buildings at the elementary level would close at 6:15. What that means is that while typically there would be requests for use for meetings, could be the scouts, it could be PTAs and so forth, we would provide for access to, at one of the three upper schools, to be able to have meetings at those facilities because they would remain open later. If there was an event that needed to occur at the elementary level within the home school, in that case, there would have to be a fee to be able to pay for the necessary security coverage to keep the building open. To make that change, that results in approximately $335,000 savings. It doesn't reduce staff. It is simply closing the buildings at 6:15, and that is an item for consideration. The next item on this list is summarized as grades 5 to 6 enrollment. That is, our staffing patterns in our schools are driven by enrollment, and because of the change in the 5-6 enrollment projected for next year, there is a slight decline in that. So we would automatically be able to reduce 4 positions, 4 teaching positions at Hammarskjold as a result. And we typically do this automatically at the elementary level. The budget already reflects that at the elementary K-4 level. And this is another area where we can make a reduction simply because the numbers are decreased for next year. This particular segment is worth approximately $382,000. The next item is on special education, and this is not to reduce services. This is related to, as I mentioned, for the grades 5-6 segment, related to the movement of our special ed enrollments and who requires services and who would not for the next year. And based on the projections from the special education department, the reduction overall in this area is approximately $430,000.
And I just want to reinforce, that is in consultation with the Director of Special Education.
I think it's important to note also that any of the items that are being put forth, we had tasked the entire administration to collaborate and identify areas that were feasible to be able to reduce. So these are recommendations that have come up through the administration. There were groups of principals and supervisors and department heads and so forth that worked collaboratively in identifying each of the various reductions that are being discussed at this point. The next item is highlighted as stipends. And if you go to page 5, just quickly go through this. The first 2 items relate to the summer ESL program. We're looking to reinstitute the summer ESL for this coming year. This would eliminate that program for the summer of 2025. That amount combined, and these are stipends paid to staff to run those programs. Dr. Boley, I believe that's a 5-week or 6-week program. So that is approximately $156,000. And then a recommendation from the high school is the removal of Saturday detentions and reevaluating the code of conduct to determine what would be a better way to address discipline as opposed to having Saturday detentions, which, if I recall correctly, Dr. Valesky, was not being found to be effective.
No, it's not effective.
That reduction is $2,800.
I don't even know how to explain it anymore. It's not effective.
So the total related to those areas is approximately $158,568. The next is categorized as non-personnel, and I think that if we go to page 6, I'm going to go through the rows 5 through 8 to begin with, because those are not emotional in any way. Elimination of student agenda purchases, elimination of a Naviance program for Hammersholt, not Naviance overall, just Hammersholt. A Naviance access at Churchill, and a Canvas training portal. Based on the recommendations that have come up from administrators, those 4 areas would be eliminated. The one item on row 4 is the elimination of the Fairview trip. Right now, we are running the Fairview trip not as we had previously, but the Fairview trip on its own is $101,500, and that would need to be a consideration for the board.
And also in discussion is parent, or at least parent advocacy to investigate fundraising for Fairview. So I want to put that on the table too. So that discussion is ongoing, because certainly there have been, and I understand the value of students going to Fairview and having that experience. But the overnight experience versus the day out and day back experience is much more expensive and almost impossible to supervise at this moment in time.
The next category is elementary specials. This would involve the realignment of teaching assignments and restructuring of the elementary schedules. And this would result in a reduction of 4 full-time positions and 3 part-time positions. Net impact on this area is just over $500,000. The next category is secondary teaching. This is, there are a variety of items within this segment, and I'll quickly go through what the topics are. A position reduction, not replacing a retiring teacher, which would require the institution of 6-period teaching assignments, but that is one of the items that's on the list. Eliminating the co-teaching model in honors music. Double late-in and early-out option for eligible 12th grade seniors. Eliminating 6-period electives, 6 periods for elective classes in core content areas, which would be ELA, math, science, history. And that would be unless it's absolutely needed in order to optimize the scheduling. Eliminating Spanish electives, and looking for ways to optimize the general ed study skills. In total, these groupings are in excess of $300,000. The next item is in athletics, and the recommendation that has come up is for 9th grade athletic program to be eliminated. The 9th grade athletic program has the least amount of competition with other schools. Ninth graders would be able to try out for the JV or varsity teams, so there are opportunities for those students. And overall, the total savings in this area would be just over $140,000. Important to note that this is not the elimination of middle school sports. It does not eliminate middle school sports. Transportation. First item on the list is with regard to graduation and not providing buses for graduation, where parents and students would be responsible for transport to and from graduation venue. Churchill late buses are on this list. Elimination of late buses. Late buses, and you'll hear that in a couple of other instances, late buses are offered as a courtesy. They're not mandated by the state. Late buses at the high school. Athletic shuttle between Churchill and the high school. Now, I'll say that that's probably going to need to come off the list in order to enable ninth graders to be able to participate in the high school athletics program. And the Hammersholt late runs as well. The last item is a significant impact, but it is on the table for discussion, and that is reducing the hours for full-time bus drivers from 8 hours a day to 7 hours a day. The total impact for these areas is over $818,000. Just generally speaking, there are those couple of areas that I can't get into the details because of the positions are easily identified to individuals, but the additional savings as a result of those, and we would discuss those in another venue, but the additional savings resulting from those is over $760,000. So in total, with all of these items, these come out to $3,959,919. Still short from the numbers that we had talked about. And just as a reminder, when we discussed the range, I just want to pull up my worksheet from the last board meeting. But the range was between $5.8 and $7.8 million. So just on the low end, and that's presuming state aid remains unchanged, just from the low end, we are still roughly $3.9 million short.
Mr. Giuliano, if I may, will the board be privy to the suggested or recommended cuts that the administration made? I think you mentioned the supervisors and principals had made recommendations about potential possible cuts.
They're all included in here.
Yeah.
That's, so they're.
All of their
It's all
their recommendations are all incorporated in here.
Thank you.
Most of what you see here came through the administrative process.
Yeah, like collaboration. Right.
Dr. Figueroa, just to note, though, there are two last pages that I recommended, pages 11 of 12 and 12 of 12, to not be handed out, because they're more specific. You guys would have to write the potentially affected employees and discuss that in closed session.
Okay, that's what I'm looking
At a future
for.
date, this is just, but it gives you an idea of the area. Thank you.
Mr. Juliana, can you restate for the public how much bank cap is already included in this calculation?
Yes. So, we have currently, that shortfall already takes into consideration maximizing our tax levy, the 2% cap, which is statutory, and we have approximately $1 million in banked cap. So those two amounts are already incorporated into the bottom line. So even with the increase in the tax levy, we still have that shortfall. And just as a reminder, the tax levy doesn't cover salary and benefits, the increase in salary and benefits. There are, without adding positions, I think there are 2 positions reflected in the budget that were requested from the special ed department. But our increase in salaries and benefits right now, without taking any of these reductions into consideration, is over $6.9 million. The tax levy and the banked cap is $3.9 million. So there's a gap right there with doing nothing.
So this is a work in process. We will continue to work. We have made progress, but we still have a ways to go. And it's getting tougher as we go. But we wanted to update the board with where we are at this point in time. We committed to doing that, being transparent with that. But as Mr. Juliana said, in our conversations with legislators, our conversations with anybody at the state level, we're not getting any hope that we are going to see anything other, at the best case scenario, flat funding from last year. But we are fearful that that funding may be reduced. We just don't know yet, and we won't know until the last minute.
We're going to do this.
Put these down.
Okay. Without getting into details, but providing a high-level piece of information here, questions concerning Bound Monroe, and there's no, we're still analyzing. I'm sorry, I think I gave one too many out. So, what's the impact of Bound Monroe if Bound Monroe were to be repurposed? I don't want to say closed, but repurposed. And when I say repurposed, we've discussed the potential of reutilizing the facility to expand the ELA program. That's the Early Learning Academy.
Which is a revenue generator.
It is a revenue generator. So, based on the rough estimates of opening additional ELA classes at that facility, that would generate net income of roughly $578,000, and that is only based on the waiting list that we currently have. Strictly the waiting list. If we were to be able to maximize every seat that is available throughout the district, then that has the potential to go up to $878,000. Now, from those amounts, we have to also net out of that the cost associated with having a nurse, which would be paid out of that program, having a custodian for the facility, and having security. Those costs would be paid out of that program. So on the very conservative side, it could generate over $350,000 in revenue, and the savings from certain key positions from the building, this is not everything, but certain key positions, is an additional $760,000. So in total, this is about a $1.1 million impact to the good for bottom line on the budget.
And just to restate, the numbers Mr. Giuliano stated was about the totals did not include this analysis, correct?
Oh, that's correct. That was not in the
Yeah.
other summary that I
So
provided.
this is addition to, and still in deliberation.
That's at max capacity.
No, that is not. That is
Waiting
not at
list
max.
only.
There's room for that to be more, but I think without having even the initial experience of opening that up, I think it would be ill-advised to try to budget for the maximum revenue.
Right.
And not knowing what that would be. I think it's comfortable knowing that we have a waiting list and we can accommodate that waiting list and generate $350,000 in net revenue to go to support the general fund budget. That would be the thing to do.
If that were the case, that would mean that ELA at every other school would not exist.
No, currently would remain.
It would remain.
This is in addition to.
Expansion.
Thank you.
And I want to say publicly too, because I know the concern about providing an option about closing Bound Monroe or repurposing Bound Monroe is what will happen to the students, what will happen to the teachers. And we're looking at those options right now because we want to make sure that we keep, to the greatest extent possible, those students together if we can. That's an option we're hoping to look at. It's not our intention to spread children throughout the district. I'm not saying that's not what might happen. That's not our intention. And so I wanted to be clear about our objective in looking at this and what we're trying to achieve. We don't have those answers yet, but that's what we're working toward.
Quick question. The last sentence where it says, if every available ELA seat through the district is filled, what's the probability of success in terms of hitting that mark? Do we think we're going to be able to hit it, or is it?
I can't give you a statistical probability on
Oh,
that at this point.
ballpark.
This is,
Yeah,
I'm not going to
okay.
do that.
All right.
Because I'll be held to it. And I'm not going to do that. I don't think we could even be able to guess that number until we were able to do phase one. And phase one would be open up the additional opportunity for the waiting list and then see what else we can garner once the space is available. Because the word gets out. If folks know that we don't have space, they may not even be applying.
The other option too, Mr. Pan, is that, our community members may decide they don't want to go to Bound. It's not their home school. So they want the ELA program in their home school. So they might choose not to fill a seat based on that decision, so.
Okay, thanks.
I wanted ELA in my home school, and when it moved to Hammersholt, I still went to Hammersholt. It's a good program. Could you explain, because someone had said during the good of the cause, that the idea of repurposing Baum, closing Baum, would just be firing all of the Baum Monroe teachers. Could you explain, I know we discussed this also yesterday, that's
Right.
not actually, I am uncomfortable with the idea of firing or reducing jobs of any teachers.
Correct, and I don't want to give specifics, but that's not our intention with the purpose of repurposing Bound. That's not the intention. But I'm just hesitant to give a public statement that might not be accurate in a week or two.
And
I'm not trying to scare anybody, I just don't want to give that information in public because it could be
We don't
utilized
know
in
what
other
it'll be
ways.
yet.
Yes.
But the numbers that I just went through regarding Bound Monroe are exclusive of the K-4 teaching staff. So it does not include teaching positions, so just so that we understand that.
So I have a question.
It doesn't include the reduction.
It doesn't include the reduction
Yes,
of
yes.
K-4 teaching staff.
So if Baum is repurposed, what kind of impact will have to the class size?
We don't have that analysis complete yet, Mr. Hahn.
Okay.
And so we wanted to share with the board that we had begun the analysis, that this was not something that, because we have been challenged by members of the community that we haven't thought through this. We have. But we wanted to share to the point that we can what we've done so far. And I wanted to make sure that everyone understands the board has made no decision about any of this.
And I think it's important, just as a reminder, that that information will be driven by the redistricting study that's underway to give us the data related to numbers of students at each location, what that might look like for each of the elementary schools, and also keeping in mind that there are at a number of our schools classrooms that are currently not occupied. So that would, we expect, would be able to assist in taking on the additional students that would be redistricted out of bound.
We have a question.
When do you expect that data to be available about the redistricting?
I will ask to see what their timeline is, but we're not going to have that prior to, certainly not before adopting a tentative budget.
Okay.
That is for certain. I can share with you that I was in communication with them today, providing them supplemental information regarding our building utilization for the elementary schools. So they're analyzing that. They want to do site visits, so I'm waiting to hear from them as far as when that might be scheduled. But it is a work in progress.
Okay.
I have just want to address some other community members' concerns. We hear that we should have planned for this, or that we knew it was eventually coming. And so my understanding, as for a school budget, is that when you are provided with funding and money for that budget year, your job is to spend that money, right? There's not a large percentage that could be carried over, which is why we see districts who get a large sum of money, right, also say, there's no way that we can spend this. Like, I think one school one district got a lot of money that they were not expecting this year and said, we love the money, but how do we even begin to look at programs that are sustainable after a year if our funding changes? So there's not a lot of money, right, that we can carry over. The point of the yearly budget is to spend down the yearly budget, right?
So, yes, so a couple of points. First, as a school district, and that is any school district within the state, the maximum that we can maintain in our fund balance, which is it's the emergency reserve, right? When everything else fails, it's that glass box on the wall that you break open. And we don't have the latitude to simply go utilize that money, but the maximum that we can maintain is 2% of our general fund. That's the maximum. We can't fall below that without permission from the state. So I would never recommend that we go to that and try to utilize that money, because if things really were to go, some catastrophe during the course of a year happens, we would need that resource.
What does that equate to?
Well, 2%, our general fund, if we're looking at our general
Under 4
fund budget,
million.
it's a little
Little under
over.
4 million.
Yeah, a little under 4 million, because if we're looking at about a $200 million budget now, 2% of that.
Like 194, so.
So, my train of thought now. So that's the 2% side. And now I lost the rest of my train of
No,
thought.
the question.
No, don't try to help me. I'll come back to it. But it was, but that 2% issue is a big issue.
Mrs. Eric, just ask your question again, and maybe it'll refresh.
So, my question is that, there's obviously a community concern. You knew, we knew it was coming. Why don't you plan? But the thing is that we're not allowed to hold that money, right? We're given a yearly budget by the state, by our federal means, by the revenue that we bring in. we have to spend a certain amount of that. We can't just say, oh, we expect to get a cut next year, let's put it in the bank, and it can sit there until next year when we're cut. That's not a possibility.
It's not a possibility. We don't have, oh, and the other portion this is what I was going to talk about. So we already generate a certain amount of revenue from unexpended funds. We know we're not going to, or we hope, we're not going to spend every last dollar in the budget. There has to be something remaining. If we're spending every last dollar, then that's a problem because there's no buffer. So how do we not spend that every last dollar? Well, we work on our contracts for services. We hope for improved health benefit experience. Perhaps our workers' comp costs are not as high as what might be budgeted. So there are a variety of things. Breakage, employees who retire during the course of the year and their replacements come in at a lower salary amount. Folks that perhaps switch health plans from maybe a family plan to a lesser plan because of changes in circumstances. On the other side, we have those that go the other way, where they may have a single or a employee and partner plan and have grown a family, and now the other side of that coin flips. But we generate a certain amount of revenue each year, or unspent money, that goes to support the subsequent year's budget. We've been pretty consistent with what that is. The danger in overestimating that amount for a subsequent year is that, one, if you don't generate that money when you close out the year, you already have a structural deficit in the subsequent year. Second, that might work for 1 year, but then what do you do with the second subsequent year after that, or the third? Because if we're, and let's use a hypothetical, if we're budgeting fund balance of $5 million, and we say, you know what, we've got to close the gap, let's make it $7 million. So we added another $2 million. First, you have to be able to generate that additional $2 out of the current budget to be able to do that. But then you've set up the budget to have to do that in every subsequent year. Is that even possible? And chances are absolutely not. That just really aggravates the structural deficit that would be encountered down the road. So
Thank you.
we don't have a piggy bank that we can put the money into.
Mrs. Eric, I just wanted to tell you, one of the things we did after last year's budget was when we had a position organically leave the district, retirement, resignation, we started looking at every position and whether or not we needed to refill that position. We went through that process all through the year to make sure that and that didn't impact anybody because those people had already left. But we went through that process too.
Yes, thank you. I do this only because I know I was not here for the public portion of our last meeting. And so I know that there are also questions about, what have we done? And I wanted to just address that as well. Many board members up here have attended meetings with legislators. We have advocated on behalf of the kids in our district as well as the kids in other schools and other districts because it's happening all around us for cuts. I did go to Trenton and during one of the school funding hearings and actually at our reorg meeting on January 2nd. I provided the dates for the school funding testimony as well as the date for the written comments, and I said that if anybody had any questions, they could reach out to Dr. Valesky, and he was more than happy at that time. He said, of course. We went over a few things that I thought were important for people to know regarding what else we were looking for regarding our school funding. And it's not just the changing the formula, right? Because a lot of us that have been up here that for a few months know that with meetings through legislators, they were not looking at changing the actual school formula this year. A lot of them feel that it works for the majority of districts and that maybe there needs to be some overall tweaks. But even last week, there were quite a few of us as board members that were on a call with Senator Gopal, who's also somebody that, I've spoken to before. I know I'm not the only one. And, the new bill that they're looking at, S 3917, that does not address the actual school funding formula. It kind of just looks at more bill transparency, capping losses at 2% of the operating budget, extending the budget calendar, and then eventually they'd like to see all extraordinary special education go to the state. Senator Gopal's also wanting to see more consolidation of districts with low enrollment and eventually look at charter schools. But I will also say this. The funding is not something that's just here. I mean, I sat through hours of testimony, and some of the towns that were brought up here, I won't repeat it, but I watched people from other school districts talk about how they've gotten rid of late buses. They've had to close schools. They put the tax increase to 9.9% last year when it was allowed. They have cut bands, they have cut out clubs, they have eliminated 250 positions. They've closed school. Another school has closed in another town. There's a bunch of school districts that call themselves the biggest losers, and that was South Brunswick, Old Bridge, Lenape Valley. And Scott Fetter talked about how they were the biggest losers and that East Brunswick and other towns were the newest losers. Monroe, our neighbor, they don't even offer full-day kindergarten. They can't get a grant for preschool. They had a problem with one of their schools. They couldn't pay to have the school fixed, so their town council had to give them money because the state wouldn't help them pay. They had to replace a boiler. So their town council voted to give the elementary school, money to fix it. They just did a new high school years ago, and it was over capacity the day it opened. So we have all of these districts around us and throughout the state. And we do talk to them, as part of New Jersey School Boards and our legislative committee, we talk, we have meetings, we have legislators there. We're trying to let them know. Even Dr. Valesky was on last week with Senator Gopal. And so instead of looking at the big picture of, okay, we're not changing the school funding formula this year, what can we break it down for our district? And Dr. Valesky expressed to him our concerns with the raising costs of out-of-district and how it could be the middle of the year and the out-of-district school could raise the cost and we have to pay that cost. And so those are barriers to us when setting a budget because we don't know what that raise could be. So we're trying, we're advocating, I could go on and on because I know there's so many people on this board that have tried since our last budget to really take it on. I know President Guas, you met with some of our Sterling Stanley, and I don't want to talk for anybody else up here, right? Like we all share the accolades, and we all are trying to work together to fix what we can. But it's like if it's not money that's there, how are we getting it?
One of the things that you mentioned was that proposed bill to capping the loss
Yeah.
to 4% of the operating budget.
2%.
2%.
Oh, 2%.
Yeah.
2% of the operating budget. If we're looking at our budget for next year, it's $4 million.
Right.
We can't afford that kind of a loss. That does nothing for us. That's devastating. Absolutely devastating. So that's not a help.
No,
I'm just saying.
I-
I mean, it may sound like, as a talking point out there, well, we're going to cap the loss, but when you look at what our operating budget is at almost 200 million, 2% of that is $4 million. We can't sustain that. We're already dealing with having to close a gap based on a loss of state aid that's nowhere near that, or flat state aid.
I absolutely agree. And this is not Lori Herrick saying this, but this is
Understood.
the senators, the people that I'm talking to say,
Understood.
well, you're from East Brunswick. And if you want to continue to have the programs that you have and provide the education that you have, then the residents of your town should be willing to put up that money. And this is not Lori Herrick.
But this is the
But
fallacy.
that is- right.
But here's the fallacy in the statement when legislators say that you should be able to put up the money.
Right.
From where? Because, first of all, to what extent do we tax the community? And the ability to do that doesn't really exist.
Right. because
When
we're
there's a cap.
A cap at 2%.
So
Yes, I know.
that's a fallacy.
And this board traditionally has been resistant, not only reluctant, but resistant to raise the burden on the local taxpayers. There have been situations where we've been below the 2% cap in previous years.
I'd like to piggyback on Lori's comments about the meeting that we had with Senator Gopal. I was on that meeting too, and in the time, I've been trying to figure out this funding formula thing, and I ran across something that was very surprising to me. And that is in terms of how the state funds special education. The way the formula works is that the state assumes that every school district in the state has the same percentage of special education students. A number is generated from the total student population, and they say, okay, well, we think you have X number of students, and that's what generates the total amount of the aid. It's calculated on a per student basis. East Brunswick's percentage in terms of our special education students is about 4% higher than what the state assumes. So and just to put this in numbers, the state assumes that all school districts has about 14.7% special needs kids. Our numbers is around 18.5 to 19%, depending on which year you take a look at. So what that means is that we've been given money for about 300 less special needs kids than we actually have. And we're expected to use that funding to support the needs of all of the students. I also just want to repeat a thing that Tim had mentioned last meeting, or the meeting before that. In terms of the way that we're spending money on students, we're in the middle of the pack for the school districts in our area that are like us: North Brunswick, South Brunswick, Edison, Woodbridge, us, and Monroe. We're right in the middle in terms of how much we're spending per students. So I think it's hard to make the argument that the school district has been wasting money, because we're certainly not doing it based on how much we spend per student. And arguably, we're doing more with the money that we have, given the special needs population that we have. And if you look at our outcomes in terms of education, I'm willing to put our outcomes above any of the other school districts that are in our area. So to me, the money that we're putting towards our school district seems to be a bit of a bargain. It doesn't help the problem, but I think it helps reframe the problem in terms of what we're actually looking at and what we're trying to do up here. And I think it would be good to keep those facts in mind when we're trying to work through this issue.
The other thing that I want to add, and it's such a perfect segue, is that the language from the state right now is not, we talk about excellence. We want excellence in our programs, and we have worked very, very hard to maintain that for years and to build. Excellence is not the language that's coming from the state. The word that is repeated is adequacy. The state is not interested in maintaining our excellence. The state is interested in adequacy. And there was someone today who came up and said, they're trying to make us into basic schools. It feels like it's trying to be basic schools. And I would say that's accurate. From the state right now, the language seems to imply that they are looking for us to achieve mediocrity.
That's right.
And that we are basically being punished for doing better than that. The other thing is that we went to the state last year about the discrepancy between our actual percentage of students in special education versus the state's estimate, and asked them to look at it again.
We did.
And
There was
No change.
No resolution. No.
the state wouldn't consider it.
All right.
So last meeting, one parent questioned us, you guys are elected, what did you guys do to get money? So personally, one big challenge for the special need student is the cost for out-of-district placement. Some student cost almost $200,000 per student per year, which is a very big number. For this kind of cost, the service provider simply just give us the bill. We have no bargaining power at all. We have to pay required by law. They give us 200,000, they will have to pay 200,000. If they give us 250,000, then we'll have to pay. For this topic, I personally talked to Senator Gopal last year twice. I said we must have mechanism there to control this out of control charge. The school district in New Jersey has no bargaining power at all. But I tried multiple times, nothing going to happen in short term. That is a big burden for school district like us. We did very, very good for the special need education. By doing good, we got penalized because we, just like a magnet, we're attracting people from other places to East Brunswick, which makes the situation even worse.
If I can piggyback on that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we have looked to provide more services in district so that children who were typically placed out of district would come back to us. I believe we've been successful. That number has been lowered since last year, but with inflation and no bargaining power, our costs have increased from last year. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. And as Liwu had stated, with no negotiation power and the state has a variable reimbursement on these types of numbers, the first $45,000 of out-of-district placement comes from us. Regardless of what the cost is past that, that's always our expense right out of the gate. And children deserve their best opportunity. This is not a district that's going to say no. This is not a district that will turn people away when they need help. And I'm really proud of that. But it is a difficult reality then when we look at numbers and we look at the state and how funds are earmarked. We don't have as much ability to spread the money the way I think the public believes we do. There are very specific rules and laws about what funds things can be spent and where and how. And I thank everybody who stayed tonight. I know it's a pretty long meeting, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you, President Goss. I'd like to tell you a good story tonight, if I may. And what I'm going to say can be said for all of our athletic programs at all levels, including our ninth grade programs. 2 years ago, an Edison teacher decided that she wanted to be part of the girls' basketball program here in East Brunswick. So our head coach, Travis Retzeloff, decided to make her his middle school basketball coach. And this young lady had played, went to school here in East Brunswick, was an all-star guard for the program. She had such a positive experience throughout her whole high school career that she went on to teaching, landed a job in Edison, is raising her family here in East Brunswick, and she wanted to give back to the program that meant so much to her. Her name is Kara Catano. She was Kara Monteseschi when she played at the high school. Under the watchful eye of head coach Travis Retzeloff, she took a bunch of young girls and transformed them into a winning team, undefeated in their first season together, similar record her second season. These girls are now freshmen and sophomores, and they're helping the varsity team win games. But that's not where the story ends. It's where it begins. These girls are part of something that they could not have attained individually. They're a team. They bleed, sweat, laugh, cry, win and lose together. When you watch them play, you are watching resilient warriors. They're tough, hardworking, focused. They don't have excuses. They don't make them. They're leaders. They win or lose, they do it together. They work together 6 days a week, if not 7 during the season, and are playing in the off-season from 7th grade through 9th grade through 12th grade. These girls also run to help each other up when one falls. And they also do that for the other team as well. They're tough, hardworking, focused. They don't make excuses, they make adjustments. They're leaders, caring to each other and to their opponents they play against. They do it as a team. These are life skills that all of us want our children to have. And they're doing this starting in 7th grade all the way up through 12th grade. And this is under the leadership and direction of our head coach and the assistant coaches and staff. Because it is a school-based, not a recreational program, these girls must keep their grades up, must stay away from trouble, and must go to school. All things that will help them become successful in the future. Because of middle school sports and high school sports, these basketball players get 6 years of program learning, belonging, and giving. There are elementary students all over this town that look up to these kids and hope to be like them when they grow up. That's what a program is, and it's from 7th to 12th grade. This is a program that these girls will remember for the rest of their lives. So tonight, I just want to take a moment to thank our middle school coach, Coach Schindel, who was here earlier, freshman coach, Coach Chupp, JV coach, Coach Warner, head coach, Coach Retzeloff, and our volunteer coach, Coach Caracatano, and all of our middle school, high school, and volunteer coaches for giving our kids and families so many great memories, memories that these kids will have the rest of their lives. Thank you, President Gloss.
Well, that leads us to board member reports on committee and information items, and that leads to my notes from during the good of the cause. I do want to say that from up here, you have to understand that we're trying to both respond to what the community has asked for and reflect. I'm a sports mom. Frank Malta has given me a hard time. He kept telling me that I need to just give in and admit that I'm a sports mom. I have 3 children who play. I think somewhere around the time when my son started playing college lacrosse, he looked at me and he said, "You are a sports mom." My daughter played for Coach Sendell. My daughter, who's a senior right now, for most of her career has been a 3-season athlete, and my little one is so excited to play. We are sports people. My children have benefited from this program. We listen to people talk about how much it means to them. Us sitting here quietly listening doesn't mean we disagree. But we had promised the community that we would be transparent from the beginning about what was happening with the budget, what could happen with the budget, and where the cuts might come from, which gives the community an opportunity to come out and speak. It gives people, it's not a surprise at the last minute. We are trying to be open, transparent, and listen. So I never want anyone to think that anyone up here is thinking, oh, we don't need late buses. My kids did. Or we don't need middle school sports. I certainly loved them. My children have benefited. We are just trying to be open, transparent, and show you all the possible things that we may have to look at, and we're trying to show you from day one instead of towards the very end when it feels last hour for people to come out and speak. And I do appreciate the people that come out and speak. It is a long line here sometimes, and it is late after a long work week. So we are appreciative. Anyone else? Committee reports?
Yeah. So I have a basketball story. Earlier today, I actually went over to Churchill to take in the girls' basketball game. My kids did not do sports. They sort of inherited my interest in love for watching basketball. Unfortunately, they fully inherited my lack of skill in playing it. So that's what our Churchill experience was like. But it was a lot of fun watching the girls' team. And this is what I saw. When they were working together, it was great. It was actually a pretty easy game for them. They won by about 9 points, and they were never out of, looked like they were going to lose the lead from the opening whistle. But these are the other things I saw. There was one girl who was on a breakaway and did a beautiful scoop layup, completely unnecessary, but looked awesome. But I also saw occasions where loose ball, player goes for the ball, another player goes for the ball, they're struggling for the ball, and it took them like a full 5 seconds before they realized they were on the same team. And one of the things that Father Tom at St. Bart's, I'm a parishioner at St. Bart's, always says is if you are having an issue that you're trying to deal with, look to what the kids do. And that's been my experience in the 20 years that I've lived here in East Brunswick, is like watching our students, because they instinctively know what to do. And like I said, when the girls' team was firing on all cylinders, it was a beautiful thing to behold. When they were fighting over the same ball, not so much. They'll learn. It's fine. What does this have to do with here? Well, we have this issue that we need to deal with. And it's important to keep in mind that we are one team here. It's been pretty clear from the presentation that we have to talk about these cuts. But the school district is doing this as a team. These are coming from the ground up. It's not one person from the top dictating what's going to happen. I don't even want to try to make those calls. I don't have the experience to do such a thing. But the team also extends across this room here. And I realize that this room is set up very badly for this metaphor, because the public sits out there and we're sitting here and we're staring at each other from across the room, and we got this wall here. Symbolically, it's kind of bad, although, this is how these rooms are set up. But this is a good thing to keep in mind, that we are all trying to solve the same problem. And this problem requires hard decisions. So it's up to us. Can we work together, firing on all cylinders, or do we want to fight each other over the same ball when we're wearing the same jerseys? I know which one I would pick, but that was my big takeaway from the game. But that layup was awesome. Two other quick things. It was brought up in the public comment last meeting that the time for public comment regarding budgeting had passed in the legislature, and wasn't that bad advice that we're giving, which I continue to give, which is contact your legislators about our situation and see what they can do to fix it. The reason it's not a failure is because maybe the commenting section for that bill has passed, but there are other bills that are working their way through. We've talked about the bill that is looking to put a 2% cap, and maybe that's not going to solve our problems, but it's certainly a heck of a lot better than the alternative that might be out there. Call your senators to try to get that bill through. There are bills that are involving looking at a 5-year average in terms of determining school funding. Call your senators about that. And please, call your senators about the inherently unfair way that East Brunswick has to deal with special education funding. Because I brought this up with Senator Capal in that meeting. It's the first time I talked to him. I'm relatively sure he thinks that I'm kind of a pain in the butt now after that one encounter. But you guys are voters, and you guys put the legislators in the seats. And I found that hearing that from people not directly involved with the school district is often more impactful than hearing it from me, Mr. Pain in the butt. Just to give you an example, there was a time when I had a kid in the hospital, and it was a toddler, and we were trying to get him down for a scan because he needed the scan, and because of his age, we needed an anesthesiologist for it and for the scan, and it was taking forever for the anesthesiologist to free themselves up to get him down to the radiology suite. And the dad and the mom were talking to me and said, what can you do? And I said, I've been calling, no one really listens to me. And I said, but here's the number for the hospital CEO's office. I never gave you this number. The parents made a phone call. The kid was down in the radiology suite in like 15 minutes. That's the difference between us talking to legislators and you guys talking to legislators. Again, keep that in mind. Last thing I just want to bring up, very short. Brunswick Square Mall has a resource fair on Sunday, March 2nd from 1 to 3 p.m. Oftentimes I hear parents saying, well, I need this thing for my kid and I don't know where to get it. Resource fairs are a great place to get that sort of information. We had one at the high school not too long ago. towards the end of the year. These things come up over and over again. Please tell your friends about this thing because they can be a great source of help. Thanks.
Anyone else? All right. I would also like to, before I forget, I would like to thank the administrative team and Karen for all the work they're doing. If you aren't following the district on Facebook, please do. They are pushing out a lot more information for the community. And it is nice to see the kids winning and winning and winning. Play like a girl is such a good thing. All right, beyond that, but thank you, because it's awesome. We have,
Can I ask the board members to please?
oh, I'm sorry, please pass
Return those
down
documents?
all the confidential
No,
things.
you can keep the memo from the DOE.
Can I read while we pass?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay, I'm reading while we pass. We have a need for a closed session. Whereas the Board of Education must discuss matters which are not appropriate for discussion in a public meeting, and whereas these subjects are within the exceptions to the Open Public Meeting Acts and are permitted to be discussed in closed session pursuant to NJSA 10-4-12B, and whereas the Board of Education intends to discuss matters as follows, items listed on tonight's agenda. Whereas the length of the closed session is estimated to be 1 hour, after which the public meeting of the board shall reconvene and action will be taken. Can I get a motion, please?
Second.
Spalko. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? All right, thank you, everybody. We're in closed. Have a good night.